across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning to you. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer, fast approaching 3 minutes past 10 o'clock. Whether you're listening on DAB Plus radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, thank you so much for your company. I'm already regretting wearing a jacket today, even linen, even in a supposedly air-conditioned office. Our whole building is air-conditioned. I'm not 100% convinced by it today, but I think it's probably better than being at home. I think the only reason most people who had an option to work from home or not today are actually in their offices today is for the aircon. But largely it appears that the country is just sort of shutting down. Don't send your kids to school, it's hot. Try not to get a railway journey unless you really need to, or rails aren't up to it. A lot of people being told to work from home. It'd be nice if we were having a hangover celebrating another little victory in the World Cup, but no, not for us on that front. But Britain, as usual, in a heatwave can't cope, and of course, do try to remember not to die, because apparently we're all at risk of dying because it's hot, even though actually an awful lot of us spend a lot of our hard-earned money getting on aeroplanes to go to countries where it is this hot, admittedly, where there are also, it's also sun, well, not just sun, but sea and sand and pina coladas as well, but there we are. We will somehow cope. I'm wondering how things are going up in government, though, because it's also heating up there. Rachel Reeves, due to be sacked as Chancellor. Yay! Of course, we could still get Ed Miliband as a replacement. Oh, dear. But we know that apparently, David Lammy is going to be sacked as Deputy Prime Minister. Reward for Lucy Powell, Deputy Leader of the party. Of course, Angela Rayner wants a big job. Rachel Reeves apparently is going to be willing to take some junior cabinet role. Have some dignity and self-respect, love, for the love of God. But Andy Burnham apparently has recruited a chief of staff, and we'll see what is going to happen. Meanwhile, he's going to a bit of a battle with Keir Starmer, who he met for the first time since he's entered Parliament. Indeed, I think since he's actually stood for the Makerfield by-election to basically oust the Prime Minister. That was the purpose of him standing. He didn't want to be a backbench MP. They've had a little bit of a battle over defence, because the Prime Minister, after waiting, what was it, a year and 2-3 months now, finally decided he wants to publish his defence investment plan without enough money in it, but a little bit more than John Healey resigned over as Defence Secretary. But Andy Burnham is saying, well, I'm going to review it anyway. The power, the authority, the ability to get anything done of the Prime Minister, who still is in office, has rapidly diminished. Indeed, like our England team last night in their performance against Ghana. What a disappointing match. I think I may have dozed off at one point in the second half. Anyway, we're going to be talking about all of that. Also, we have this report coming out. It's at 11:45. It comes out into Nottingham NHS Trust Hospital, where the biggest maternity review ever in the NHS has taken place. And by all accounts, it is not going to be pretty reading. We'll be talking about that. Plenty more besides. And joining me for all the chat today, I'm delighted to say, it's Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator. And you will probably note he's not wearing one of his regular, very smart woolen suits. And you're genuinely struggling in this heat, aren't you? This isn't for you.
No, there's nothing good about this morning. I'm really not enjoying myself.
Not that shirt.
No, the shirt, and fortunately none of you can see my trousers or what I've got on my feet.
Genuinely, he came in holding his jacket. It looked like he was going off to work in a souk in Marrakesh.
Honestly, we had
to have words
so that we could send people who like this sort of temperature to those places, so the rest of us could be happy. Now we have to bring it here, and I'm deeply distressed by all of this.
Well,
I mean, the thing is, you were saying, oh, people like to go on holiday. They like to go to hot places. Yeah, you can take your kit off there. I'm not allowed to do that here.
Please don't.
The security people said, now, Mr. Spence, we've told you about this before. Stop doing it.
There's quite a lot of shorts out. Quite a lot of.
At least I am wearing trousers.
You are at least wearing, and we thank the Lord for that. I'm going to put the question to everyone. I want to put the question to you. I know there's lots of politics going on, but come on, you know the only conversation you're having with anyone right now is actually about the heat wave. And as much as I fight against, I mean, you know, a lot of the mainstream media do, but part of me just, I just sort of feel, it's like, for goodness sake, can everyone get their act together? Britain is basically shut down in a heat wave, we're told. OK, there were still lots of people on the train, lots of people going to work, lots of people don't have an option about whether they go to work or not. But we're told we're going to get 40 Celsius temperatures. They're going to loom today, tomorrow. Many pupils and workers told to stay at home. Absolute nightmare for parents if their kids are at home. Oh, fine, I'll just take the day off, shall I? What is your reaction to all this? Are you coping? Is this about Britain just not getting with the programme? Is it also very frustrating when all these climate change hysterics have been shouting for years, oh, we're all going to die because of all the heat waves, the planet is boiling. Well, why have you not been campaigning for us to get aircon in our homes? Actually still illegal in new build homes to fit it with aircon. It's actually illegal. I mean, but they all think, but the people who make all those rules, because of, not consuming too much energy, because of climate change, they're the ones who think you're going to need aircon in your home for more than just a couple of days a year. So what is your reaction to this? Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text us on 87222 or get in touch on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged to the national rate and text costs £1 standard network rate message. Also, you know perfectly well, I would love to hear your thoughts on the latest shenanigans, what's going on in politics in Westminster. Not in Manchester anymore. Burnham is very much in Westminster and currently right now, as far as we can tell, absolutely bricking it at the fact that he's going to be Prime Minister on the 17th of July and hasn't got a team and hasn't got a plan. Oops. So much talk about Benedict. I mean, I'd love to be talking about the football, being all happy, but least said about that, the better, I think.
At least we got that out of the way. The disappointing result, we've got it out of the way.
Got it out of the way. Is that what we're doing now?
Yeah, I think so.
Is there an issue in this country? Like, I get that, for instance, railways. They say, if you don't have to travel on the trains, please don't. Are there people who just go, you know what, I think I'll take a completely unnecessary, incredibly expensive, very tedious journey on a railway for the sake of it?
Do you know what, actually, I suspect there are. I mean, there's a lot of train spotters in this country.
But they're just stand at stations.
Oh, that's true.
No, I just find that, like, I'm just getting on the train just for the pleasure of it. With all due respect,
Not anymore. Once upon a time, I do believe, I'm told, travelling by rail was actually quite nice in sort of 1890.
Yeah.
But now I don't think actually anybody goes to sit in the buffet car.
When you had a 3-course dinner.
To take in the sights, all that
No, exactly. But it's just like, and I understand the whole, we built our railways at a time, things have got warmer.
Yeah.
Not because of Industrial Revolution. Things have got warmer because we've been coming out of an ice age and temperature changes. It's called climate for a reason, and weather, and things have changed. But also, most of the time, most of the year, we don't have extreme temperatures, so you don't build our railways to cope with that because you don't need to, and it's a huge extra cost. And there are certain ways of building railways and certain materials and combination of materials you use, which varies if you're living in a hot country or a cold country or a country like us. And therefore, how much extra do we want to spend to upgrade everything so that we never have a worry like this? That's not how it works. Schools closing. Back in 1976, I was living in America with my family, and we came back in the summer here, and everyone was walking around like shirtless, going, "Oh, it's so hot, it's so hot." It's like 80 degrees, and it had been for weeks. I'd been living in the Midwest of America, where it had been, again, old money, 120 Fahrenheit for months. We were off school from April, but that's because primary schools in particular, but secondary schools I think a lot as well, they've got massive windows for the light, and it just means they are boiling hot and they don't have aircon. Is it reasonable that things close down for a couple of days a year?
I don't think it's unreasonable if actually you're making up productivity elsewhere. I think if you're going to be living in a country that it goes through sort of sporadic heat waves of a week, say, and maybe that happens 2 to 3 times a year. Well, OK, I mean, France takes all of August off, so does Italy.
Yes,
and actually the Italian economy is doing slightly better than ours these days, so clearly it doesn't affect them too badly. But the thing is, I think there needs to be flexibility about this. It can't simply be that, I mean, as you say, the majority of the time we do not, in fact, live in a heat wave, so you can't optimise rail waves to be perpetually prepared for a heat wave. But what that does mean is, I do think it's completely fair then for people to say, during weeks like this where the forecasts are what they are, to say, OK, you can work from home in most instances, only sort of travel if it is essential. There are always going to have to be people who don't have a say over this, but maybe that is therefore where some businesses then have to, I don't know, rethink how it is that they go about their working practices in these kinds of environments. Because, we can adapt. How likely is it that you're going to get as much work done in 35-degree heat as in 20-degree heat? It is fairly unlikely, if we're being honest. But also, we do need to make the transition to aircon. Come on, we have the technology. The US, Dubai, all of these places are able to function. Singapore, because they have aircon.
Exactly.
And aircon also
Most of America, you don't have to be rich in America to have an aircon unit, certainly in your bedroom.
Modern aircon units also heat up during the winter. They can do both things as well. So actually, why
not get a heat pump? Apparently, we're not getting enough heat pumps. But what I love is it's whole like, you know, because of we're having, you know, it's much hotter, and apparently these heat these. I mean, look, this is weather, right? It's a heat dome. It's a particular weather pattern that's hitting the whole of Europe, but. People, of course, the usual suspects are saying, oh, well, it's climate change, it's climate change. And no, by the way, it's not all scientists. It really, really isn't. And by the way, you lose your job if you say it isn't. That's why a lot of them say it. And you make a load of money if you do say it. I'm sorry, follow the money on this one. But basically, they say, well, it's all down to climate change as a result of the Industrial Revolution, blah, blah, blah. No, because of the Industrial Revolution, we have the ability to deal with changing climate. We can have heating in our homes. I know, in the winter. We can have cooling in our homes in the summer. How brilliant. I mean, it's almost like human ingenuity has given us a way of solving this problem, mitigating this problem, and it's working around the world. And it is extraordinary to me that there's, oh, we're all doomed, we're all going to die. And if one more person says to me, oh, people are going to die because of the heat. People die because of cold, far more than they die because of heat. Wow. More people, by a large majority in Africa, die of cold than die of heat. And Africa's quite hot, and a lot hotter than here most of the time. I mean, I'm sorry, cold is your problem, not heat. I'm very sorry if someone dies because of the heat, but I don't think that's a reason for us never to be allowed to take a flight again or stop being allowed to eat meat.
I'm even more Darwinian than you. I wouldn't even say that cold kills people. People die. It's kind of what happens at the end of the day. That is
and more people die in winter
for.
because they're susceptible to...
one way or another, something's going to get you. Maybe it's extreme temperatures, maybe it's your lifestyle.
They're not sitting there in a nice cold... I mean, we do have a few cases now, and that's awful, but largely... and again, in France, 2 kids died in a car because of the heat wave. No, 2 kids died because their parents stupidly left them in a boiling hot car. Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, that's why they died. People have been told this
for decades. Don't leave children or animals in cars.
I would say don't leave children in cars, whether it's hot or cold.
Not even in 25 degrees. You're not supposed to leave them in with the windows closed.
Generally, don't leave your kids in cars.
Again, it's just a really stupid thing to do, and I'm sorry, but actually, no amount of anti-climate whatever is going to change that. If we bring down emissions, that's not going to stop stupid people doing stupid things. Same when people jump in reservoirs and they drown because they realise it's quite cold and it's very deep. Well, what are you supposed to do about that? They're going to do it either way.
Yeah, exactly. And also, we always think cases about, these people kids who, if your kid can't swim, you need to sort out your parenting. Your kid should be able to swim. Schools are supposed to teach swimming, but if they haven't, I'm sorry. We are not talking about something that is a great cost. I'm sorry, your kid needs to be able to swim, end of. But again, that is something that I think that the schools should take care of. Schools being closed, though, I mean, you have this throughout your years when you're a parent, when you've got, I'm out of all this now, but you just, oh, it's snowing. Seriously, oh, one teacher can't make it to work and might fall over, so we have to close the schools because it's snowing. It's going to be hot in the classrooms. Well, it's going to be hot at home as well. Yeah. But the thing is, the school goes, but it's not our problem.
The thing is, and this is the tricky thing, and this is where you sort of have to understand what a school is also for. In heat like this, children are not going to learn, but we have to just accept that they're not going to learn, and they're not going to learn at home either. It's therefore, for them to effectively be a bit of a creche. It's for them to be somewhere. And, OK, they're going to be rowdy, they're going to be loud, they're not going to be concentrating. Fine, you have to write off that day. But you're going to be writing it off whether at home or at school.
Well, schools are quite happy to write off the last week of every term.
And parents still need to go to work. So you can't just turn around and go, oh, sorry, no school for this
But also, here's the key thing, and again, all these people who go, oh, the option to work from home. I do get a bit fed up when people go, oh, it's too hot, it's too hot. Yesterday, when my bins were collected, I mean, he's got a story about this. You see, the smell of the food, the smell of anything, the conditions these men are working in. Yes, they are largely men. If you're moaning about, oh, my office is a bit hot, I mean, we've just been moaning, but, frankly, give yourself a shake because you're not picking up smelly bins in this temperature. And I think, and it's not like it's really cool in the morning. Thank yourself lucky you don't have a physical job in these temperatures, frankly.
Yes. Although the bin men did not collect my bin this morning because they said it smelled, which is what happens when you don't collect bins for a fortnight in 35-degree heat. The bins start to smell.
It's a small point worth making. Let's talk politics. We've had our rant.
We have.
I promise we won't do that the whole show. I mean, if you're watching any other alternative channels or listening to the radio, that's all they're talking about. So I promise we'll move on. But it'll all be because of climate change. Oh, by the way, no, I must mention
not done.
the national. the National Energy System Operator last night, NESO, they're the people who are basically in charge of the energy grid, effectively, and energy in this country. They put out a tweet about how basically, you know, we're going to struggle, we're going to be at the limits of our energy capacity, and this is due to the hot weather. It's like, okay, it's not due to the hot weather, it is due to the fact that we have got increased huge number of extra people in the country, extra energy needs, and we are not producing more energy because we barely got any nuclear reactors still working. We haven't got enough gas, we haven't got gas storage, and we use solar power and wind power, which is intermittent and puts an extra strain on the system. That is why we might have some problems with energy. But also, they posted it on X with, of course, the trans flag in their actual ID is NESO with the trans flag. I'm thinking little less time worrying about trans rights, little more time worrying about our right to have as much energy and gas as we want or need at all times, regardless of the weather. So you did your job. Yeah, did your job. I think trans people and gay people and people who support Black Lives Matter and people who think for some reason they are this thing called queer, whatever it is else on that stupid flag, I think they would also benefit. So, you know, it wouldn't even be transphobic to just do your job, just say. Anyway, let's talk about politics. Keir Starmer held his first talks with Andy Burnham. Interestingly, not in Westminster, not in Downing Street. Both snuck out to have a meeting. I'm sure it went terribly well. Keir Starmer, absolutely not a bitter man. You could tell from that announcement on Monday, he's absolutely furious that he thinks he's been stabbed in the back. Watching all those cabinet ministers, the few who turned out outside Downing Street, he didn't have the whole cabinet there. They were all busy, you know, clapping in Andy Burnham as soon as he arrived back in Westminster to be sworn in as an MP. We're told now, Garen Jones said he's not going to stand against him as a possible, you know, a Starmer loyalist figure. We still don't know about Earl Khan's. It's dubious whether or not either of these men could have got the 81 MPs they need. And even so, they're going to lose.
Yes,
so what's the point? By all accounts, Andy Burnham's team are getting a bit of a worry because they're scrambling to prepare for government, because if there isn't a contest, as many had expected, they're basically looking at a 17th of July handover, and they're not ready. Because apparently he wanted to be Prime Minister, and it was a big plan, and he plotted to, you know, stand in various different political seats. This was the second seat he wanted to stand in, and was ready to go for it, and apparently doesn't actually have a plan for government. A little bit of a worry, that.
Well, I mean, I'm not actually that surprised, because he's not a serious politician. He's great at vibes. He's much better communicator than Keir Starmer. And for a very long time, politicians in this country seem to believe that that is the most important thing, that you're good with the vibes and the communication, and people get you on some level, and you get them. But that, of course, does not a Prime Minister make. And I'm in no way surprised, therefore, that he thought he'd have more time. He thought everything would just go very smoothly for him. And also that Keir Starmer would acquiesce to his own defenestration. Frankly, I'm on side with Keir Starmer. Why should he make this easy? Keir Starmer is a dreadful Prime Minister, but there has been very little loyalty shown to him by Andy Burnham or any of these other, as you just said. They were all perfectly happy to go take the selfies with the man who is not yet even Prime Minister, who has only just got back over the threshold into Westminster. Why on earth should he sit there and go, oh yes, I'm going to make this so easy for you, Andy. I'm going to make it so easy for you to just come take my job, absolutely destroy any sort of legacy that I had. Not that he had much, but still, that's all fine. You do you. I'm just here as a placemat.
Why should he? He says, of course, everyone said he's been very honourable, the Prime Minister, because he said he would, of course, give his full support to whoever takes up. And as I pointed out to a guest who said, well, that was a good thing. He couldn't say, and I'm going to really try and do over the next guy, but he's obviously bitter. But you cannot have a scenario where there is no other candidate and no one coming forward, that we're waiting until the 9th of July for nominations to open. We've got a complete, I mean, he wasn't, as if he wasn't a lame duck already, weirdly, with 400 MPs, a lame duck Prime Minister over the summer months. None of the problems that we're facing are going away. I mean, people might be going away on their summer holidays and not concentrating on politics so much, but sorry, our debt keeps mounting, our welfare bill keeps mounting, the defence threats keep mounting. The boat migrants will still come.
Oh, they love it in this chat.
Wait for the next few days' figures. That's all going to carry on coming, in which case, someone's going to have to act. But the Prime Minister hasn't got any power, hasn't got any authority. He says he's going to announce his defence investment plan. He's going to rush it through before this NATO summit, I think the 7th of July. But again, you know, mate, how long have we waited for this?
Yeah.
And so, you know, he's not got much credibility there. He's going to put a bit more money in it. But it's going to be a bit of a battle. But the reality is, Andy Burnham is not ready. The fact that he's still... we know he's going to sack Rachel Reeves. Of course he is. I mean, that was never an option not to. She's got no self-respect and is going to stay on, we think, in some more junior role. I mean, she wouldn't even be a threat in the backbenches. Everyone would just go, shh, shh, go and mend your abacus. Shh, no one wants to hear from you anymore. Angela Rayner is hoping for a good job, but it looks like Lucy Powell will get, you know, Deputy Prime Minister. David Lammy is going to be sacked, apparently. Get in.
I think that this is a step down, replacing David Lammy with Lucy Powell. I mean, there's not many people that you could replace David Lammy and go, this is a step down.
She's
but
not.
Boy, has he picked one.
But she's been very loyal, you know. But the fact that he's still looking at Miliband or Wes Streeting as his Chancellor, that shows you he doesn't know what he wants to do, because those are very, very different prospects.
They are very, very different prospects. The problem is, I think, that Miliband is popular with the MPs and party members and Streeting is not.
And lunatics.
Yeah, but, and this is the key thing, Miliband increasingly is not particularly liked by many unions. Why? Because they have started to understand, hang on, his policies on net zero are going to mean our jobs go. Yeah. And when you start to lose those sort of, you know, the Labour Party is the political wing of the unions in this country. Yeah. When you start to lose those slowly over time, he is going to be sat there going, this isn't actually very good at all. And whatever else you can say for Streeting, he is marginally more competent than the average Labour MP.
And he's a good communicator. And a lot of the things, I mean, look, Rachel Reeves was her own worst enemy. Those national insurance tax rises. I mean, she clearly has no idea how an economy runs. It's certainly how a business is run. That winter fuel allowance, means testing and all of that. But I think fundamentally, Wes Streeting will be better at communicating these things.
Yes.
That said, I can't see any scenario where there aren't some very difficult choices to be made. That will be a little bit of a poison chalice there for Wes Streeting, because that will be quite a cunning thing for him to do. Let's also talk about a couple of other big things happening today, because we've got a grooming gangs investigation. It's just been announced. The grooming gang inquiry is announced that will be held in Oldham, Bradford and Keighley and London, where, of course, Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, has insisted absolutely will not... does not have any problem with grooming gangs. More areas will be announced over the coming months. Oldham had previously been announced as an area of focus. Work's already underway there. Bradford and Keighley, there have been concerns for years, and that's why it's being an investigation. And in London, the inquiry will look into how abuse by grooming gangs has been identified and responded to, although pointed out that the scale and complexity of the capital and its multiple boroughs poses an additional challenge, which of course is why there hasn't been perhaps the same scandal in London as elsewhere, because it's happening across different boroughs and that gets dissipated.
Well,
but,
it's happening across different boroughs, and there are different ethnic groups involved. There are also different criminal organisations that are procuring children for those purposes that are not linked to ethnicity. It's just good old-fashioned seedy child prostitution that's being done for money. So it is a little bit more complex. But we would be such fools to take Sadiq Khan at his word. Oh, it's not a...
I mean, it's just happening everywhere else in the country. But London, randomly,
the super city that sucks in all and sundry around it. Oh, it magically doesn't have that. Come on.
Absolutely.
Of course it does.
Well, I mean, what's extraordinary, if you think about how long this has been going on, the whistleblowers, the Maggie Olivers, there's so many of these incredibly brave young women coming forward who've been, you know, I mean, just literally treated, I mean, just abominably.
Yes.
And it took so long to get that statutory inquiry announced by Keir Starmer in June last year, a year ago. They didn't even have a chair, did they, until December. And former Children's Commissioner Anne Longfield is chairing the inquiry. They formally began work in March. I mean, this is going to be a very long road. There's no way this is reporting any proper detail for a long time.
This is decades in the making.
Also, another report out today. It's going to be out in about an hour and 20 minutes' time, and that is a report into Nottingham Hospital and NHS Trust. And this is Nottingham University Hospital's NHS Trust, I must say. There are police investigations as well, but this is the biggest maternity review in the history of the NHS. Widespread failings leading to the deaths of babies and many avoidable harms. And again, this like these sort of midwife-led units where women were just told to basically sod off home, not taken seriously. Caesareans, treatment was not given. There's some talk. There's some racism there. There's some just Asian women do this. Women in the traveller community, they do this, and a lot of judgments. And yet again, our brilliant, amazing NHS yet again failing on the ground at the most important time that we ever need the NHS is when our babies are born, for goodness sake. Can you think of any more crucial service? And I can't think how many different maternity failings at the NHS hospitals we've seen, and yet we keep being told, the NHS, we should worship it, let's all clap hands for it.
Yeah, but it's, again, we're talking about the grooming gangs just before then, it simply reflects the culture of silence, of omerta in this country, where you simply do not say the awful things that you see, and if you do, you are the one that is punished. And it takes a critical mass of these things. It's only when a certain number of infants have died, a certain number of girls have been...
No, it didn't even wait for that. It had the parents campaigning for years.
But that's my point.
Yeah.
It's only when the critical mass happens and you have too many things and too many people and too many things to actually avoid and ignore that finally the system reluctantly drags its feet. Exactly. By which time, of course, many of the people responsible, they're long gone. They're out of the system because these things have been going on for decades. That's the awful thing about this.
There are ongoing criminal investigations, and this is where we need to start having. I just find it extraordinary. If you're in any job that involves that people are going to make mistakes. There's human error. That's going to happen. Sadly, some baby is going to die. This is a dangerous job.
Yes.
This is having a baby. Giving birth, this was the most dangerous thing women ever did.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we medicalised it, because it's safer that way. I'm sorry, it is. Can I just give you some tips? Don't have a baby at home. Don't go to a midwife-led unit. Go to a top teaching hospital and have someone with you who's willing to shout at people to get you treatment. I cannot stress enough that is what you should do if you're having a baby, because so many people go, oh, no, demand a second opinion, do whatever you have to do. But it is, and I say that as someone who had a 74-hour labour, it is extraordinary. I have interviewed far too many parents of babies that have been lost during the birth because of stupid medical errors. Not, look, it was a touch and go, but just not giving treatment at the right time, not listening to mum saying, look, something's going wrong. And it's absolutely heartbreaking. And the only way it stops is if people learn the lessons. There's going to be another report, yet another hospital, yet a load of failings, and I don't think anything's going to change, because there is just no will to make any change of any sort in our NHS, because it is a religion. And these people, the people running the NHS, are the problem. People have got to get to grips. They are the problem. Right, we're going to go to a quick break. We're going to get your calls on. We're going to be talking to Annunziata Rees-Mogg coming up, what she makes of the shenanigans in the Labour Party. Do get in touch. I want to hear your thoughts on whether it's Andy Burnham, whether it's on the heat wave, Britain shutting down. If your kids' school's closed today, are you left high and dry? Maybe you've got the sort of job where, you don't get to work from home. You don't get to moan about, oh, the aircon's not great today. How are you coping? I don't know, you're a farmer, bin man, whatever you are. Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. This is Talk.
What they're ashamed of is the English flag. Scottish flag, fine. Welsh flag, fine. Irish, everything like that's marvellous. But no. We can't be English. And this has been going on for a long time.
He would be Prime Minister of the most toxic political brand in the country at the moment, which is Labour. And that is what we will be battling against.
Our Prime Minister is allegedly attacked by another nation and nothing is said.
This is a reminder that Russia regards the United Kingdom as a hostile power.
The UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense. 10:31 is the time. Let's get straight to your calls. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Ken is in Poole. Oh, apologies, not Ken in Paul. Apparently, we're just moving his line. Graham is in High Wycombe. Graham, you want to talk about Andy Burnham, don't you? What do you want to say?
I certainly do. Unfortunately, I didn't join you in the Bollinger on Monday.
I know. I didn't have Bollinger. That was one of my callers having Bollinger at 10:30 in the morning.
I remember it well. Look, whoever's in charge, we live in a capistocracy, which is a government of the least competent and the most unprincipled. So you said earlier, Andy Burnham might be in power in 3 weeks' time. It doesn't matter if he's ready or not, because he's probably going to do worse if he is ready.
Why do you say that?
Because they have the wrong policies and completely the wrong idea for this country. They're going to keep, as you've already reported, increasing tax. This is a party that believes that you can tax your way into prosperity, that you can grow the pie by dividing it even more. This is a party that doesn't believe that we can build anything. I mean, when was the last time as a country we successfully built anything? HS2 is sitting there. We should have a third runway at Heathrow years ago. And worst of all, we have the Labour Party, I believe, fundamentally dislike the very country they want to lead.
Yeah.
It's like George Orwell said, we're the only country in the world where the liberal intelligentsia are taught to hate the country.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you. I really couldn't agree with you more. But you've got to remember, though, Andy Burnham, he believes in, if you're talking to Labour guests yesterday, you know what he believes in, what he wants, what his policies. So we do social justice and strong growth. It's like, those aren't policies. Those are. I said that's mum and apple pie.
No, it's a statement of the bleeding obvious, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't. Yeah, it's the easiest thing in the world to say. And obviously, I think he sort of failed upwards. I mean, I was trying to do some research into him. I mean, he's tapped the buses in Manchester at £2. Well, well done. Most people could do that in an hour. What else has he been doing?
Yeah, but also, by the way, what else had to be cut to do that, to cap the fares? Because again, they're not, that money has to come from somewhere, because that otherwise people are paying more for their bus fares. I'm all in favour of subsidised public transport, because people need that, but nevertheless it's subsidised by other taxpayers, and so the money for that isn't available for other things.
Well, it's like Keir Starmer's biggest achievement, breakfast clubs. I mean, well,
I know.
As a parent, I would not want someone else to pay for my child's breakfast. That's my job, thank you very much.
It's utterly bizarre.
Looking after my children.
Absolutely bizarre. I couldn't agree with you more on that. Thank you very much indeed. That's Graham, not impressed. Ken was on the line. We keep losing Ken's line. He was going to point out that he, like me, went through the summer of '76 and people just stopped complaining. But his line keeps going down, probably because of the heat. What's your reaction to the heat wave? Russell says it's pathetic overreaction. Sadly, that seems the norm now. This is the case, Russell. Martin says, I guess these are the same schools that need to close when a millimetre of snow falls. Yeah, I mean, I bet you there are schools that stay open no matter what every time, and then there are the schools that don't. And we saw also things like during lockdown, didn't we? The schools that went, right, we're going to get everyone online, we're going to do lessons, we're going to be shipping iPads to kids, we're going to get the stuff done. And the ones who just went, well, we'll send an email to parents once a week and... over to you. And I'm pretty sure these are the same ones. Stanley says simply, snowflakes. Could really do with some snowflakes right now. Baz says it's not going to hit 40. Why is the news pushing this lie? Weather apps for Heathrow and London showing 35 maximum, and it might not even hit that either. Baz, I think you'll find it will hit 40 at a weather gauge right next to a jet that is taking off at Heathrow. That's what happens. And it's really weird, isn't it, that all these weather gauges that are in areas that are urban, that weren't urban when they were set up, or they were suburban, and are now completely built up with loads of traffic and hot tarmac that retains the heat. And amazingly, it's got warmer. It's really noticeable, isn't it, when you're in the middle of a city, how much warmer it is than when you're, out in the middle of the countryside when there's no heat build up. Yeah, we will... They're going to make damn sure we hit the 40, mate. It's just not going to be on any of our thermometers. It's totally utter rubbish, says Jane. They just want to enjoy the hot weather. That's the people who are taking the day off. She goes, I'm loving it. Charlie says, simple solution, just build some more air conditioning units. Why did no one think of that? Oh, yeah, every other country in the world that has hot weather has. Mind-blowing, eh? Anyway, up next, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to be talking to Annunziata Rees-Mogg about what does she reckon a Burnham government holds for us. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 10:38 is the time. Let's talk to Annunziata Rees-Mogg, Head of Communications at Popular Conservatism. Very good morning to you.
Morning, Julia. How are you?
Very well indeed. Thank you for joining us. Coping with the heat?
I'm surviving. It's extraordinary. There's this thing called summer, and we all go abroad to enjoy the nice hot sunshine.
What? I imagine in the Rees-Mogg households, the various households, and the ones you grew up in with your brother Jacob, I imagine there was no time given for I can't cope because of the weather.
I'm a permanently cold person, so personally I think this is a bit of light that it's a bit warmer.
You're now a normal temperature for once.
Yeah.
Does it say something about our country that we sort of don't function, or is it just we do live in a country that is largely, the weather's fairly blur, and therefore we don't prepare for this sort of weather? Why not? Because we don't have to.
Exactly, and we have a few anomalous days, and sometimes it's, a bit snowy, and sometimes it's a bit hot, and we should really just get on with it. I'm
loving that attitude. Should Keir Starmer get on with it and hand over the reins to Andy Burnham? He's given a timetable for departure, but it looks like there isn't going to be any challenger. Darren Jones, he was frankly an also bad as it is. He said he's not going to challenge. Al Carnes is perhaps the only other possible challenger. Either way, he knows he's not going to win. He'll probably get a better job offer from Andy Burnham if he doesn't run and cause a delay. But that said, we're looking at, 17th of July, we have a new Prime Minister. By all accounts, Andy Burnham not actually ready to be Prime Minister on the 17th of July, was counting on having a bit of planning time. I've been asking various Labour souls this week, what would a Burnham government look like? What would his politics be? What would his policies be? What is his plan? As far as I can tell, it's social justice and there's going to be growth, but we're not quite sure how, and possibly some nationalisation, but I don't know of what. Is that a plan?
It's not a plan, and it's unforgivable, actually, because he's been plotting for this since last year, and to have been going round at the tail end of last year trying to persuade Labour MPs to stand down so that he could get their seat, going to the NEC in January so that he could stand in Gorton and Denton. He's been planning this properly hard to win power, but that's all he wanted. He hasn't been planning policies. He hasn't got any values or principles that we know of to base those policies on. He did so many U-turns in the short by-election campaign, but on trans rights, on migrants' benefits, on our relationship with the EU, on should we ignore the bond markets.
Yeah.
He U-turned on it all, and none of us have any idea what a Burnham Prime Ministership will be or what his government will stand for.
I can live with me or you or my audience not knowing what it is. I'd like to think that he knows what it is, but the fact that we told... again, we don't know anything for sure until it happens, and obviously there's a lot of horse trading that we're going on right now. But the word is, Rachel Reeves is out as Chancellor and will probably agree to take some junior role because she's got no self-respect. But there's no way in the world you could be a new government and you keep Rachel Reeves. She's as unpopular as Keir Starmer, and part of his problem. There's no way you'd keep her in the Chancellor role. But the fact that we're told that the two candidates most likely in the running for this job is, one is Ed Miliband, who would be an unmitigated disaster. The other is Wes Streeting, who you'd think perhaps was someone who was a rival, might have negotiated that, but, a good communicator at least. But anyone who's got the job of Chancellor, it's a great promotion, but it's also a poison chalice because the numbers ain't going to start looking any better anytime soon, are they?
They're not. There is no money that Rachel Reeves has overtaxed, overborrowed and overspent. And we're already hearing that the likes of Angela Rayner are pushing for benefits to be protected.
Yeah.
There aren't going to be any cuts. We can't afford $5 billion that we need for defence. And it'll be very interesting.
And the rest, 5. We need 28
billion.
billion.
Extra 5 that on top of
28 in total over the next few years.
Absolutely. But we're nowhere close to it, and we don't have the money to do it. The bond markets are ratcheting up the rates just as a bank would if you were looking like you couldn't afford your mortgage. there is no understanding of basic economics in this entire party. It's quite extraordinary. But the fact they had to go to a man who wasn't even an MP to replace Keir Starmer shows you just how short of talent or experience or any form of use the Labour Party MPs are.
It is quite telling, isn't it? There's no one in the cabinet, no one in the government ranks, no one on the backbenches. Andy, up there, would you mind coming and helping us out? It really is quite telling, and it's fascinating to see that shift of power. Prime Minister desperately trying to cling on, clearly furious that he's being ousted, and he feels backstabbed. He doesn't think he's done a bad job at all, which is terrifying that he doesn't realise that. I'd have really respected him if he said, you know what, I wasn't up to the job, I couldn't do it. I'd go, oh, you know what, nice to know you've got a bit of self-knowledge. But the view is that Andy Burnham can beat Reform, can beat the right, certainly in the Makerfield. I mean, a very peculiar set of circumstances. I think people in Westminster may be reading far more into than is actually there to be read. But, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about, how Reform deal with this, how the Conservative Party deal with this. Now, you're at Popular Conservatism, the popcorn lot. Wanting to have, some sort of, I suppose keeping the Conservative Party on track on the right rather than having a load of Lib Dems in it, basically. Reason why a lot of people moved to Reform was they felt the Conservative Party was not representing their views, was no longer a Conservative Party. What do you make of the challenge that Andy Burnham poses there? If he is as popular and has his bounce, is there a risk of a general election? Do you think that is a concern for your party that you support?
Popcon is cross-party. We want to unite the right. And I think we saw in Andy Burnham's by-election that Reform ran in May for the local elections on a ticket of vote Reform, get Starmer out. And then Andy Burnham ran on a ticket of vote Andy Burnham, get Starmer out. And the message was get Starmer out. It wasn't we love Andy Burnham. But yes, he does have supporters in Manchester. Of course he does. But that wasn't the reason he won the landslide effectively that he did in that by-election. It was because people were fed up with this government and they saw Keir Starmer as the head of it, as the person to blame for that. Yeah. And they wanted change. I think it is completely unreasonable that our entire government is decided by one constituency out of 650.
But hold on a minute, that's always the case. We only ever get to elect an MP, and if that MP happens to be the leader of the biggest party in Parliament, they become Prime Minister. That's our constitution.
Absolutely. But it looks like Burnham is going to be making quite substantial changes to the manifesto.
So did Keir Starmer. Most of the policies we know about from Keir Starmer were not in his manifesto.
No, but the underlying programme was very clear. And if Burnham's going to completely change that, and if what we're hearing is true, then he is planning on big changes. I think there's a lot of confusion that having James Purnell, who's an old Blairite, and Miata, who is a hardcore left-wing nationalisation socialist economist, as his two seemingly closest advisors, is a complete contradiction. Yeah. So who knows?
And this is it. This shows the confusion. Now, again, wanting to be all things to all men, but at some point you have to govern is to choose. You're going to irk, should we say, irk off some of the people on your side. We hadn't actually talked about James Purnell. He was, of course, a former culture secretary. He was a special advisor at the same time as Andy Burnham was. They're old mates from many years ago. They shared an office together. They were both Manchester MPs. I mean, they've got so many links. He, of course, went off to be a big head honcho at the BBC before going off to do the lobbying side of things. And he's coming back as his director of communications and his chief of staff, and that's going to be absolutely fascinating to see.
It is, and if he has any deal of influence, it will set up Andy Burnham against his hard left backbenchers. And we've already seen that with Keir Starmer, that when that happens, the backbenchers win and benefits balloons even further. Yeah. But the fact that Andy Burnham is also taking advice on how to nationalise water, electricity, a whole of energy, transport, it's pipe dreams. There is no money to pay for all of this. The upfront costs are things.
And also, it won't change anyone's lives, which is what people are wanting. Annunziata, great to talk to you. Annunziata Rees-Mogg, Head of Communications at Popular Conservatism, PopCon. Benedict Spence, your response?
I mean, whilst it may be incredibly expensive, the thing that we're all missing, of course, with this is that it's surprisingly popular, a lot of the things that he's promising.
Oh, yeah, nationalisation,
So even though we're all sat here going, my word, this is going to bankrupt us all, he won't care because he will suspect that there's enough people, there's a critical mass of people who are prepared to back him either way. And I mean, you just need to see, frankly, how many people sort of backed the Greens recently.
Yeah, but it's still
the leaning into fantasy politics. Britain has yet to reach
people
the
can
stage.
support lots of policies until they're expected to pay for them.
But that's the point. Britain
They think
has yet
someone
to
else
reach,
is going to pay for them.
Britain has yet to reach that point
Critical
where
mass,
the crisis happens.
Absolutely. I mean, may as well. I say, make Angela Rayner Prime Minister and bring it on. I've always said this. 10:48 is the time. Up next, going to talk to the brilliant Emma Trimble at the New Culture Forum about the latest woke madness. And why on earth the BBC has decided they're going to target non-British viewers. This is Talk.
What they're ashamed of is the English flag. Scottish flag, fine. Welsh flag, fine. Irish, everything like that's marvellous. But no. We can't be English. And this has been going on for a long, long time.
He would be Prime Minister of the most toxic political brand in the country at the moment, which is Labour. And that is what we will be battling against.
Our Prime Minister is allegedly attacked by another nation and nothing is said.
This is a reminder that Russia regards the United Kingdom as a hostile power.
The UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 10:50 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Benedict Spence is still here. Let's talk right now to Emma Trimble. She's Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum to talk about, well, I mean, I suppose we just class it under a whole load of usual woke madness. A very, very good morning to you, Emma.
Good to be with you, Julia.
Thanks for joining us. Let's first of all talk about Kemi Badenoch and the speech she's given about how young people are being taught that Britain is a horrible place. She uses the word horrible. And she's not wrong, is she?
No, she's absolutely right. And we've known this for so many years. I mean, our universities are completely infested with it's not just an anti-British ideology, but an anti-Western ideology. And this is really, I mean, it's almost, well, it's not almost, it actually is an intellectual tradition. It's something that has come down to us from the United States, whether it's through critical theory coming from there or from French philosophers. And this has become so dominant in our universities. And what has been in our universities for a long time, we've been seeing over the last 6 years, trickling down into the rest of our culture. And it's what's led to all of the sort of woke purges that we've been talking about now, Julia, since 2020.
Yeah, I mean, again, people often focus a lot on what's going on in our universities with academics and with students, but actually it's starting much, much earlier. And that's why you're sort of breeding this collection of young people who come into the world thinking, well, not worth having children because we're all going to die because of climate change. I mean, literally there isn't any scientist who is saying that's the case. Believing that white people are born innately racist and under oppressors, and anyone with any shade of brown skin is somehow oppressed. The trans people are the most put upon people in the world. I mean, it goes through all that. Oh, and Palestinian cause is the ultimate virtue signal, and Israel is the ultimate signal of hatred and death and destruction. And this stuff is coming through in the schools. They're seeing it also. I mean, they're seeing it online a lot as well. But at the end of the day, when people in authority, when teachers, when they spout this stuff to them, when they hint at this stuff, when they encourage this stuff, that's how it happens.
Yeah, I think at the height of the kind of ideological fervour after 2020, after the murder of George Floyd, and all of the sort of activist activity that followed, we saw a lot of this stuff, and we talked about it very often because it was in the news more. This was something that seemed to be new to people. It was a kind of cultural revolution that was taking place, and I think that there can be a perception that because we're talking about these things less, I think partly because they're no longer new to us, that these things have gone away. They haven't. Our institutions, whether it's educational institutions, heritage institutions, whether it's at higher education or at school, for younger students, the students are not being taught to be not to be proud of their country. I'm not suggesting that children should be, taught
indoctrinated, but
indoctrinated.
They should have a balanced view of their country. Yeah, all of our history can't be entirely about the fact that we had an empire in slavery. There's more to us than that. And by the way, we ended slavery. I don't think that is a stain on our character. I mean, it is painful, that, isn't it? Listen, I want to talk to you also about. I mean, there is a small victory here, though. Although I'm not into exhibitions being pulled. I don't want to censor anybody saying anything at all. But an artist, it was a joint Turner Prize winning artist, so probably live without her art. Helen Cammock. We talked about this on the show recently. She had a video display at the National Portrait Gallery which criticised Winston Churchill. Of course it did, claiming he deliberately killed millions of Indians with starvation during the Second World War. It's actually now been withdrawn by the artist. She claimed that he willfully inflicted mass starvation on Indians. Now, there's no doubt at all Indians did die en masse, but it largely seems to be, it was. Unfortunately, they were not a top priority during the war effort. This was something that happened, in the 1940s during the war effort. And a lot of very esteemed historians who, said, look, this is simply not true. You've no evidence for this. But it's exactly the sort of thing I now expect to be happening out on national galleries. But a small victory that it's been withdrawn?
It is. I mean, this is exactly the perfect example of what we're talking about, Julia. I mean, the line that this artist has taken on Churchill's history and the Bengal famine is something that we see repeated time and time again, despite the fact that it's not historically accurate, and it's been busted by historians time and time again. Yeah. Not least of all, Lord Andrew Roberts, who was at the forefront of pushing back against this false narrative in the National Gallery. This is not to infringe on somebody's artistic freedom, but you can't have in the National Gallery. And if you remember. When during all of the Black Lives Matter stuff, when exhibitions were being edited in various ways and things were being removed from galleries, people were talking about contextualizing them with plaques. This was, put in the National Gallery with, totally uncontested, presented as if it were fact. Churchill was not responsible for the rice crop, for the typhoon that led to the rice crop failure that led to the Bengal famine. And he actually did everything that he could in order to try and ameliorate the effects of that. He looked to Canada, to the United States, to Australia to try and find a way to make sure.
A lot of people would argue. I mean, we spoke to a guest on this, the other week. Not enough was done. But again, sorry, we were in the middle of fighting the Nazis at the time. I'm sorry that actually, other things were going on.
But it's not. I mean, it's to say not enough was done. I mean, sure, but He did. He did so much, and actually probably above and beyond by actually trying to redivert resources that would have been needed.
But again, it's the inference. Well, not inference. The blatant statement that someone has bad apes. Load of people died. It's because he's a horrible, nasty white racist. To denigrating some of the greatest Britons who've ever lived. Is the thing that I think that really, really upsets people, is that we have to have heroes. And no one's pretending that, Winston Churchill was perfect, or any of our heroes have been perfect, or any international. People are flawed human beings. But it's almost like a need that they have to bring down anybody who has, basically done the right thing. I mean, I don't know, small matter of saving Europe from Nazism. I mean, I think that should count for something. Just one final thing I want to talk to you about. The BBC News apparently are going to target international viewers rather than viewers here in the UK because they make more money from their TV channels overseas. This is an interim chief executive of BBC News, Jonathan Munro, says the broadcast will prioritise international audiences because it wants to shore up its finances. But hold on a minute. I mean, I know they make money from abroad, but we fundamentally pay billions in our licence fee for them to do the news. It's supposed to be for us. I don't mind a little bit of world news for international people. I know it plays quite an important role, BBC Persia and all that. But, I mean, really? Like, isn't it supposed to be about us?
Defeats the object, really, doesn't it, Julia? It's supposed to be the British Broadcasting Corporation.
Fair
and
point.
if people are being asked to pay the licence fee, you should expect that it's the licence fee who's going to be the primary customer of the stuff that they're producing.
Yeah.
They're obviously doing this because they can advertise abroad and they can make more revenue from it. But if they're going to do that, then they have to drop the licence fee, and perhaps
it's one or the other.
They're preparing for that. Who knows?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, all in favour of them doing that. I defended them. I wasn't a defund the BBC person until their coverage of Israel. I think they've lost all claim to be a public service broadcaster on the trans issue, on climate change nonsense, and on their pro-Palestinian propaganda. I just think they've lost all credibility. And yeah, frankly, I don't want them to have a penny of my money anymore. Emma Trimble from this New Culture Forum at Suez, she's a senior fellow. Thank you so much. I know Benedict Spence wants to get in. Time is short. I will come to you on some of those stories coming up. In the next hour, we are going to see that report into the maternity failings at Nottingham University NHS Trust. We also learnt this morning that grooming gang investigations will be held in Oldham, in Bradford and Keighley, and also in London, where, of course, the London Mayor Sadiq Khan says it's not happening at all. And what the hell's going on with Andy Burnham? This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good sweltering morning to you. Fast approaching 3 minutes past 11 o'clock. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. And whether you're listening on DAB Plus radio in the garden or on your smart speaker, whether you're watching us on YouTube in hopefully the coldest room in the house or at work, and you're your connected device, thank you very much for your company. I hope you're coping with the heat wave. Whether you've got to work, managed to get off work, looking after the kids because their school is closed, wherever you are, however you are, maybe you're just sitting in the car with the aircon on, I don't know. Very, very welcome to join us on the show. Very much appreciate you joining us. If you miss anything on the show, go to my YouTube page, The Julia Hartley-Brewer Show, hit subscribe, and you never have to miss a thing. Coming up, we're going to be discussing more on Keir Starmer meeting with Andy Burnham yesterday. This orderly transition of power. Is it going to be a bit too soon for Andy Burnham? Do we yet have a plan? He's told allies he wants to spend more on defence than Keir Starmer, who's planning to publish his defence investment plan before the 7th of July. And that, of course, is before we even see the opening. This is the absurd thing, the opening of the nominations to run for the Labour leadership. Looks like it is just going to be Andy Burnham, in which case, what are we waiting for, guys? Plus, young people are being taught, as I said, that Britain is horrible. The Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch, has said, and we have learnt today that the grooming gang investigations will be held in Oldham, which we knew already, Bradley and Keighley, and also in London, where Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, has insisted to us, no grooming gangs in London, nothing to see here. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the heat wave. Britain basically shutting down as 40 Celsius temperatures are apparently looming. I've got to be honest, it feels like that in the studio right now. Pupils sent home, workers told to stay at home. A lot of people can't be at home. A lot of people, let's face it, would normally be sitting around, if it was around 25 degrees, working in the garden. Oh, what a surprise. You've got into your office today, haven't you? Because you wanted the aircon. I've got to be honest, even in our building, which has got some pretty good aircon, it's struggling. It's struggling right now. But do we make just far too big a deal of it? And yeah, we're going to talk about the summer of '76. Yeah, we are. We're not going to talk too much about the World Cup and England's efforts against Ghana last night, because frankly, I think I dozed off at one point. It was so dull, that 0-0 response to the match. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on anything and everything we're talking about. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text us on 87222. Get in touch on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged the national rate and text cost £1. Standard network rate message. Benedict Spence from Delighted Today still joining me. Hot bothered Conservative commentator in the corner. I won't go on about his horrific shirt today, but I am going to insist it's thrown in the bin after the show, just for everyone's benefit. OK,
I'll get my kit off and walk through London with my shuttle. I'm one of those people. England didn't even win last night. Then I could have got away with it.
Who did that. Now, we did rant on about the weather for a bit, but just very brief. I mean, amber extreme heat warning still going on for Friday. We've got a red heat warning. That's basically we're all going to die warning. I did give in, and I did actually take a bottle of water on my train journey in this morning because I was a little bit thirsty yesterday. Just that sort of like, it is quite hot. But I kind of hated myself for it because if you must see at any railway station and tube station, you get a sign saying, when it's hot, please carry a bottle of water. And hilariously, they keep those signs up even when it drops to sort of 17 degrees and it's raining all day.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the thing, of course, when they say, due to today's wet weather, please take care on the escalators not to slip over.
I hadn't thought of that.
Although sometimes they use the word inclement weather, which I think, that's nice, that's a throwback, that's a bit niche.
Isn't it?
But,
absolutely.
No, it's almost, ironically, they make it sound cool by saying, amber extreme warning, can think, oh wow.
Well, they love their weather maps for that dark red, don't they?
But they've run out of colours now because basically they've gone from dark red to basically black in parts of the country. So if it gets any hotter, it's kind of like, oh well, it's still black. It's still a black warning.
I mean, the thing is, we'll talk about the climate change because the hysterics are up. I mean, the climate correspondents. I mean, when they're not,
they love it.
When they're not jetting around the world. I mean, the UN Secretary General, he's a full-on doomsayer. He jetted in. He jetted into the country talking about the... I mean, genuinely, the man's such a... Antonio Guterres, who goes on about we're all going to die because of the heat, we all have to change our lives. Not him, though. Not him.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm sure he only flies first class or private jet.
It's not like Antonio Guterres is from a country that has famously learned to adapt to heat or anything like that. Oh, no. He's saying, oh, you're all going to die. Nobody's alive in my country.
That said...
Nobody's there.
Quite into the idea of siestas.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's quite a nice idea. But,
I'm not quite sure that if you go to places like Spain or France, really, when it is really hot, I'm not quite sure why everything has to close down for 3 hours at lunchtime. given that you do have aircon now.
Yeah, this was a discussion that I once had about Croatia. Is it a Mediterranean country or a Slavic country? Because it doesn't close at lunch, so they've still got that work ethic.
Well,
and they also drink beer rather than wine.
It'll bode well. It'll bode well for the future. Let's talk about this announcement this morning that the grooming gang inquiry is going to be having investigations held in Oldham, in Bradford and Keighley, and in London. The real surprise there, I think, is London, where, of course, Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, when questioned by people from the Greater London Assembly about grooming gang issue in London, he's basically said nothing to see here. He's not aware of any problem. I mean, a lot of people just say, are you kidding me? Given particularly the ethnic religious group, you had Pakistani Muslims basically from the Kashmiri area in Pakistan. Sorry, the heat is getting to me. In Pakistan, have been largely responsible for those grooming gangs in numerous cities around the country. Well, they've got quite a big population in London. I think it'd be strange. And we know other ethnic groups, including white people, by the way, are involved in grooming gangs. But there's been a particular issue with an attitude towards white working class girls who were seen as expendable, people not being investigated when they've been reported to the police because of concerns about community cohesion. Yeah. That's the key issue. It's not that only certain people are paedophiles and rapists, it's that who can get away with it because of cultural concerns. But the idea that it's not happening on a grand scale in London as well as in every other town and city in this country, I find risible. Why does Sadiq Khan think it isn't?
Oh, because Sadiq Khan thinks that London is the best city in the world, but it's also a dreadful place. So on the one hand, everything is wonderful under him, but all the children live in poverty, and that's why he needs more of your money.
And are dying from pollution, apparently, if you drive your car.
It's great vibes, everything's wonderful, but at the same time, climate change is going to kill you. That's his attitude sort of every summer. Everything needs to be sort of ripped down because it's old and colonial, but at the same time, London's heritage is brilliant, and that's why everybody comes. He lives in a constant state of flux between view. He and Andy Burnham must really get on, because they just flip-flop on absolutely everything. It is both terrible and brilliant at the same time.
Big pro-Euro.
Oh, of course. We're not in Europe, and that's that's part of our strength, but at the same time, we want to be in Europe, because then we can align with it, even though the lack of alignment is what allows us to be dynamic. And you just sit there and you listen to these men spouting off, and you just think, how did we get here? We used to actually have people that understood things like cause and effect and things like crime and things like statistics, and now we just have men who sort of wave their hands in the air and go, isn't it great and also terrible at the same time? Well, and everybody nods along and goes, oh, yes, Mr. Mayor, it is.
Ties in very well with that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this grooming gang inquiry. I mean, again, it's set up a year ago, and it'll be
years before we get a result.
Moving.
If there's a result, and then we'll be told lessons will be learned, within which time more people will have been abused. And they will never get
thousands of girls are being abused today.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the thing. I've always said this, and it's gruesome. It's like, right now there's a girl being gang raped above a kebab shop, and we'll all just pretend. That's not happening, and it's something's happened in the past, and that's not the case. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's the reality. Listen, let's also... You tied it very nicely with Andy Burnham. He was Mayor of Greater Manchester, Sadiq Khan, Mayor of London. Mayor of Greater Manchester is going to be our next Prime Minister. I think that's absolutely without doubt now. Yeah. Darren Jones, who was... who? Yeah, exactly. Even Mrs Jones is like... Do you think you're going to run for leader? Okay, he says he never did. It was people close to him. Yeah, it was people close to you saying something because you said it. And now he's saying, oh, no, I'm not going to run for have a contest. Now, the view was, Andy Burnham didn't want a contest. But when the timetable was set out by Keir Starmer on Monday, doesn't that seem a long time ago?
Yes.
Monday morning. And he set out 9th of July, nominations would open. I mean, that's in a few weeks' time. And then they would close on the 16th of July. And then would go to the party membership if there was an election, or but basically you'd have a prime minister in place by September. Well, hold on a minute, he's going to be in place on his own 17th of July. I mean, to a certain extent, on the 9th of July, guys, do you want to nominate yourself? Have you got the numbers? No. At that point, it should be closed down then. If Keir Starmer really wanted to do Andy Burnham up like a kipper, he could say, great, I resign now because there's only one candidate, he's going to get the job.
Yes.
And he should just do that. But realistically, Andy Burnham, who had a plan to become Prime Minister, doesn't have a plan what to do when he becomes Prime Minister.
Yeah, and this is just the ongoing tragedy of, frankly, of politics in this country, is that there are far too many people who fancy themselves for the top job, but haven't given very much thought as to what that would entail. And once they get there, then they're sort of caught like a rabbit in the headlights. Such as Keir Starmer, for instance, didn't seem to actually have, having said,
and he had
I'm
4
so,
years in
yeah,
opposition.
having said, we're the best prepared opposition in history, it turned out, we don't really have much of a plan, apart from this stuff that wasn't in the manifesto. We're going to rush through that, and we can't even get a lot of that done. That's the state of the Labour Party right now. And as you say, nobody else is currently throwing their hat in the ring because everybody else in the Labour Party understands, A, they themselves are not good enough. Things are that bad within that party that even their egos can't be that big.
There wasn't a single MP sitting in Parliament, the 400 odd, there wasn't a single one of them who was considered good enough.
Yeah, and they all understand what's going to happen, which is that Burnham is going to... He might even have a bit of a bounce this summer. He might conceivably have a good summer. He's not going to win the next general election. And, you know, I'm saying that now.
I don't think... I would guess that, but I don't think you can say anything anymore.
Several years out, I just think the very fact that we're talking about somebody about to be parachuted in, almost no opposition at all, parachuted into the role of Prime Minister, and he's hopping about going, who's going to be my Chancellor? Does that not ring the alarm bells?
The deal wasn't already done.
Yeah,
and again, who your Chancellor is, not only is it someone you should work hand in glove with, but it's somebody who is on the same page as you in terms of what you think to do. Because I know everyone says he's not really ideological, but actually, no, there is an ideology behind. Do you think that you should spend money on this or that? What your priorities are? What you're going to do? How you should raise money? How the economy should work? Other than social justice and growth, brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah,
I'd love to see both of those.
How much have we had of that for the last couple of years? How's it gone?
Tell me someone who goes, I want to be an MP, I want to be Prime Minister. I do not believe in social justice and I do not want growth. No one says that, so it's meaningless.
Yeah, and this is why I say, if he does... He could surprise us all, call an early general election, but if he lets this drag out...
They'd have to... the bounce in the polls would have to be huge. It would have to be 20 points ahead to be sure.
Maybe.
What, with the scrutiny?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think
Burnham is already being held to more scrutiny than he expected.
But that's partly my point. The longer that he is Prime Minister, the more scrutiny he's held up to, the more people realise, oh my word, this man doesn't have a plan. He's outsourced it to people who ultimately also are just, tax, let's do more of that. That's their attitude to everything. The longer that goes on, the less likely it is that he wins the next general election. And, and that's not me saying Reform or the Tories or anybody can get a majority, but that is me saying he will fumble it either way.
Well, it's interesting. The people he's looking at, Wes Streeting, and Ed Miliband are both the two top contenders for him to be Chancellor.
Yeah.
Very different views on. I mean, Wes Streeting, I think, is a bit more practical. Although, again, Wes Streeting is someone you think sort of a bit on the more of the Blairite side of things. I don't know what any of these people actually think because they seem to flip-flop on absolutely everything. I thought he was fairly sound on things like trans rights. Turns out he wasn't. No, exactly. You really, we'll talk about that as well in a few moments. You can't, you almost don't know what anyone thinks about anything. I mean, and again, I think that's where they really fall down. People go, who are you? What do you want to do? But even the fact that you're looking at these two different people, the two different characters, perhaps with two different agendas, as Chancellor, shows that he doesn't know what he wants to do. We are told, that David Lammy's going to be out, yay. Lucy Powell, Deputy Leader of the Party, will get a big reward, so presumably Deputy Prime Minister. I mean, it's a meaningless job anyway. Yeah. Angela Rayner will definitely get a good job. But she, crucially, calling for welfare not to be cut. I mean, you are not a serious person if you are saying you don't want any cuts to welfare.
But this is my point. What I was saying earlier about people, they like the free stuff, and until actually
we know
reality,
she does.
Well, yeah, exactly. But until reality really hits, and this is, I'm afraid to say, the sad thing, it is going to take a crisis that is going to ruin millions of people's lives before the general public and the parties realise this can't go on. And that hasn't happened yet. Yeah. We've had the COVID lockdowns, we've had the Ukraine war, we've had the minor sort of blip of Brexit relative to those sorts of things. We've had decades of a failure to reform institutions, to look after the roof properly, so now it's actually caving in. We've had all of that, and we've still not actually yet reached the IMF bailout stage. But we're going in that direction. It'll get that. And the question will be, is that the crisis that'll do it? Yeah. Or can the country, in fact, take more pain? Are people prepared to sit on their hands and go, yeah, but I really love my benefits, and I really want my state pensions stay the same, and healthcare needs to be free.
I think the idea that someone like Angela Rayner, you pulled herself up by her bootstraps, and I've got a lot of time for her on that front. From the age of 16, being a carer, teen mum, and everything. I genuinely think that is a record to be proud of for her. But I genuinely think that somebody who's come from that sort of background, who thinks it's a good idea for a load of people to be able to claim benefits and they don't need them, I think that is an insult to working class people, and actually you're doing those young people, particularly the NEETs, a terrible disservice by putting them on the scrap heap of life and enabling that to happen. I can't have them in orange jumpsuits and doing useful things and conscripted. I'd be doing, and they'd thank me. Not at the time, 10 years' time they would. But they haven't got a clue. And interesting, you look at our numbers, we are borrowing more, we have higher debt and way higher interest rates than any other comparable country in terms of how much we've increased our borrowing. But we're not borrowing to spend money on, building nuclear power stations and gas storage and new railways that actually ever happen or anything like that. We're not doing anything. They talk about investing. They talk about investing in the NHS. Paying a doctor an extra 20% is not an investment. That's daily expenditure.
Yeah, it's going towards keeping people chronically ill, ultimately. And welfare is keeping people out of work. If you are investing, as you say, in infrastructure, if you're investing in... if the money is productive, that's okay up to a point.
If you're investing in training up a load of these young people to be builders so we can build some more homes...
None of this money is productive. It is just going
I'm genuinely terrified. And again, he's going to have a bit of a bounce, but I think the shine is already coming off. People are going, OK, so what are you going to do? People accepted the whole Labour, Keir Starmer didn't... It was just going to be changed. He didn't tell us what he was going to... We didn't have much detail. And they accepted for Andy Burnham. He was running for Makerfield. But you kind of think... But you must have a plan.
Yeah.
And as we found out, Keir Starmer didn't have a plan, didn't have a clue. And I think people are fed up with it. And I think an awful lot of people are going to just say, sorry, mate, you look nice in your little polo shirt. And that's great. And you've got a nice little quip here and there. And he's a genuinely nice guy. But you shouldn't want to... Not only should you not try to be Prime Minister without a plan, you shouldn't want to be Prime Minister without a plan. And as I said this week, you could put me in that job tomorrow and I would at least know the top 20 things and I'd know at least 40 things I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I would have my priorities. And I would have a coherent idea about what we're doing. But as I said again yesterday, and I'm going to keep saying this, we need a leader. And I don't know who that is right now, who can literally say to the country, we're in really tough time. This whole we're a rich country thing and everything's fine. No, we're really not a rich country. We're actually not. We are falling way down the league. We have a load of things we need to sort out, and it's going to take all hands on deck, and shoulders to the ground. And everyone's going to have to accept, that probably, some taxes are going to have to go up, and it's not just for those wealthy people over there to do some investment, to get some stuff done, to get this country working again. And I'm afraid, those benefits are going to have to be gone. There's a lot of stuff that people won't like, but people need to understand need to happen.
Today we've already got the news that changes to ISAs are going to happen, so taxes are going to be going up on those, and the amount you're able to invest...
That's supposed to be you keeping your cash safe but not paying interest.
But the amount that you're able to put in tax-free is also going down, unless, of course, you're over 65. Which is just kind of sat here going, so working productive people, again, are being taxed. And as you say, maybe some taxes will have to go up. Maybe they will. But my word, the amount of money that is being handed out for people to do nothing is crippling.
This is it. It's what people object to, is that they're paying a hell of a lot of tax, and it's going to people who are doing nothing.
It's bigger than the tax take on income tax.
Can I ask you?
That's unsustainable.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, if anybody's listening going, oh, but what about my personal circumstances? I'm sorry, the maths doesn't work anymore. If you have more going out than you have coming in,
we have enough benefits for people who are absolutely in need, and I don't want their money to even go down. There's people, but the vast majority of people now who are they're not in need.
No,
I'm so sorry. It's not going to happen. Not on our watch. That's what I would say if I was. If the test of whether you're a good human being now in the Labour Party is whether or not you will stop a 21-year-old who has mild anxiety from ever working. If you think that makes you a good person, you're actually a bad person. You're actually not doing your job by helping that person. Can I ask you about Nigel Farage?
Sure.
He was on the show yesterday at 10 o'clock, and he'd done various other interviews beforehand, and all of us had tackled him on the issue of this £5 million gift, reward, payment for his security. He's described it in various different ways from his crypto billionaire in Thailand. No doubt at all he's having a lot of grief over this.
Yeah.
Labour press office picked up on my interview and retweeted it. It was saying, oh, you know, what's he got to hide, you know, actually answering questions. I pointed out to them that what have they got to hide, because when you're putting a Labour MP up for my show, because they don't. I mean, when I was on the breakfast show and you have the media around, hilariously, I mean, Tories and Labour just as bad, where genuinely, you know, you'd ask perfectly reasonable questions and you'd just point out when people were talking absolute nonsense, which is what you expect me to do in my job, what all interviewers should do, and then you get kickback. Well, we're not going to put a minister on or a shadow minister on for 2 weeks. It's like, fine, I'll live with it, but I'm not going to not ask you the questions or not pull you up on when you talk absolute abject nonsense. I think that this is a real big issue for Nigel Farage, and a lot of senior Reform people are also worried about this.
Yeah, he's not handled it well. On the subject of
he shouldn't have taken the money. Well, he was not an MP.
Well, no, but he wasn't an MPA, and he also says that this was for personal security, which, as you know, is, you know, incredibly expensive and for him, very necessary. But also, I think that this speaks to a lot of how, frankly, cryptocurrency isn't something that's understood by the average person,
We think it's dodgy.
They all think it's dodgy, but you have to understand why it exists. So what it is that people are talking about is Nigel Farage has been asked by some dodgy man to lobby the Bank of England not to bring in a UK-backed stablecoin. Even if they did that, nobody would buy it, because the point of cryptocurrency is to take your money out of the hand of a government, which is devaluing your money. That's literally the whole point. And yes, criminals use cryptocurrency. Do you know what else they use? Pounds, the US dollar,
euros, because you have a 500 million...
Any store of value, because they're criminals. That's what they do.
But, I mean, we're not accusing the donor of...
No, but that's the line that is being spun.
That's the thing. But the crucial thing is he wasn't an MP at the time. He had no plans to return at that time. And I do know that from behind the scenes. But he was being persuaded by a lot of people to return. But under the rule, he says he didn't have to declare this money under the rules. It was a gift, and he said to me, "It's none of your business. It was a gift." And I was like, "It was almost like an inheritance. You know, someone has an inheritance." And I pointed out, "He's not your dad. You know, he's much younger than you for a start." But the reality is, you know, when he became an MP, you have to declare any money in the last year, any gift, any benefit. He didn't declare it, and he says because it's nothing to do with politics. But that's a matter for us to decide, and it is a matter for voters. And I'm afraid it does look bad. And he says he hasn't spent the money. He could spend it on a Ferrari, he said, if he wanted, or security. He then got security because he was an MP, and therefore it hasn't been such an issue. But
what is the issue?
How damaging is it? My thing is, I don't want anyone getting big donations from anybody. I don't want any even donations to party. I mean, I want I want us not to go down that American route where billionaires get to decide our policies. Frankly,
except that he wasn't an MP at the time.
He wasn't an MP.
And this is kind of I don't understand what the issue is.
You think there's no issue here?
He wasn't an MP. He wasn't planning to be. So you couldn't claim that he was being given this money to lobby as an MP on behalf of anybody.
I'm not claiming that.
So what is the problem? Genuinely,
people do not accept that people get £5 million for nothing.
And also, they don't understand what cryptocurrency is.
I think that's part of it.
The whole reason why
I think if this was a guy who made tractors, and we know what a tractor is, I think we'd go... Like JCB, you know, Bamford, you know, giving money to, you know, Boris Johnson's campaign. You know, you want policies, you're pro-Brexit. That's fine. People are clear. Again, I still don't want people being able to do that.
Well, that's fine. You can say you don't want people to receive that kind of money, and broadly speaking, I'd agree with that. But the thing is here, as you said, there is a double standard. If it was a company everybody had heard of, they'd go, all right, that's why they've done it, but there's nothing dodgy going on here because he's not an MP. The second somebody goes cryptocurrency, everybody loses their mind because they go, drug money and money laundering.
But you can't complain about Keir Starmer getting a load of free suits from Lord Ali, Mr. Free Keir Gear, and then go, I've just got $5 million in my bank. I don't even need it. I haven't even spent it.
Of course, when Keir Starmer got those things, he was going to be the next Prime Minister of this country. Nigel Farage was not even going to be an MP. That was not the plan.
But the rules are, if you do become an MP within the next year, you have to declare it.
That's true. But my point here is I don't actually think there's anything dodgy going on here. I think it's a bad judgment, and how he's handling it is pretty bad. The whole, it's none of your business is not a good way to respond to this.
You know one of the things you can tell about people who are very rich, and everyone thinks, well, they've got money to give away. One of the key things about people who are very rich is they're very focused on making money, and what they don't do is just hand out £5 million to people here and there, even if they like them. They just don't do it, and that's why people don't like it.
I mean, the thing is,
and I say that as someone I consider Nigel Farage a friend. He's someone I've got a load of faith in politically. I see him to be a stand-up guy on all those things. I think this is a massive. not catastrophic necessarily, but I think it's a massive mistake.
I do think that he's handled it very badly, and I think the way, as you said, when he goes to you and he goes to other people and go, "Oh, it's none of your business," that's not the way to handle it because it makes it.
I'm a
dodgy.
voter.
Yeah.
What goes on in your bank account actually is my business.
You should just say it's for security,
that's why we have the
and I need security.
That's why we have the register. That's what he said originally, and now he said it's not.
Yeah, and this is the mistake. He shouldn't have changed his story, even if it wasn't being honest. He shouldn't have changed the story.
But that's why we have a register of interest. When I was a lobby correspondent, I had to fill out. There's a register of interest for journalists. If you want to find out, what the political editors, they have to. If they get a big sum of money from, or over about £1,000 or something from any organisation where they're paid to do a speaking job or something, they have to declare it, and there's a reason for that. Just finally, we're going to go to a quick break, but I've got to touch on the World Cup. But we talked about it. We had joy talking about it last week.
Yes.
But it was England v Ghana, very lacklustre.
Listen, you can't.
All I can remember is the bloody rehydration breaks. There seemed to be quite a lot of those. I genuinely dozed off for a couple of minutes in the second half.
It was a poor game. You can't win every game. Ghana, to be fair, they're a good team.
I think you do have to win every game if you want to win the World Cup. I'm old-fashioned like that.
Argentina won the last World Cup. Do you remember who they played in the first game?
No.
Saudi Arabia. Do you remember the score?
Oh, was that when it was like
Saudi 2, Argentina 1?
Okay, yeah,
it is absolutely fine. Sometimes a good team needs a bit of a kick up the backside to get it into gear.
I don't think they need to be motivated. If you're not motivated to play well, OK, to be fair, they were trying, and we did see the Ghanaian defence was.
Yeah, Ghana is a good team.
Well, we were told by TalkSport yesterday, not such a great team these days.
Traditionally, there's 5 countries in Africa that are always decent. Ghana
this lot didn't even make it into the latest Africa Cup.
African Cup of Nations is a weird competition, though. Egypt always does well in the Africa Cup of Nations. It never does well at the World Cup. It's a different competition. But I'm not worried. You're still relaxed? Relatively relaxed.
OK, we're OK for Panama on Saturday night.
Yeah. Now that I've said it, it'll be Panama 1, England 0.
So, do you know the most awful thing that could happen, genuinely, if you're an England fan? What if, just consider this, people, what if we don't get through our group? I think that'd be hard to... Scotland
beats Brazil.
Tonight. Good luck to them. Scotland beat Brazil, and they win, and they get through. Seriously, imagine that. Imagine that.
The banter, my word.
Just saying. Harry Kane, get yourself in gear, mate. 11:29 is the time. We'll take your calls up next. Give us a call. Anything and anything you want to talk about. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. This is Talk.
I listened to Keir Starmer yesterday when he came out, and it looked to me like I thought for a moment he was saying that he was going to challenge Andy Burnham because he made the case for why he was so brilliant. We all have our own views about that, but it was certainly not a kind of I failed, that's why I've had to go. It was I succeeded, basically you don't want me anymore. And that was that.
More
really.
fool you, yes.
The UK on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense. During this heatwave, Barry is on the line in Norwich. Barry, you've got no time for all this fuss about the heatwave, have you?
I haven't. No, I'm sorry. I can't. Yeah, right. I don't believe these schools are shutting because the kids are hot. I mean, I grew up in the 1980s, and our school never shut because of the heat. It was lucky it was shut because of the cold.
Yeah.
Right. I can't cope with it no more. I walked through the city today on doing some bits and bobs, and I saw signs up in shop windows, right, saying shop closing early today due to extreme temperatures, and I'm like, help me out. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, what is going on?
Well, there is that. Again, we just don't want the discomfort, do we? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if you run a private shop, you're entitled to do what you want. But I mean, I don't. But my local supermarket's absolutely lovely to walk in now. Normally, you have to put a coat on in the middle of July to go in there. Absolutely wonderful. I'm just going to go and stand in the freezer department. But the thing about schools and things, you know, as Benedict was saying earlier, they're not just about teaching our kids. A lot of people have to go to work.
Yeah, but I said to someone today, because their kid was off school, and I said, look, this is the education system that made children wear masks during COVID, wouldn't open classroom windows, right, during COVID in the heat. Right, and now they're sending them home because they might get a bit warm. Well, do you know what? Yeah, give them some umbrellas, put them in the shade. They're chucking them out of school into the heat.
Well, this is my thing. Do they think that their homes are all air conditioned and they'll sit by the swimming pool all day? And again, a lot of these kids will be going back, to flats in tower blocks where the heat is even worse. Again, and I've always found that the same. It's like the whole when it's snowing. Oh well, they can't come to school. They're all going off to go sledging. They're going to be in the snow. They could have coped in the playground. It is just a general sort of panicky, and it's a sort of, it's a jobs-worthy health and safety thing, isn't it?
Oh, it's gone mad. And one quick comment on the England match last night, if I may. I think Shamima Begum's got more chance of coming over and England got bringing the World Cup back.
Barry, you've won the day. You've won the day. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, I'm going. Benedict's going to love that for the rest of the day.
That's me done.
Fair point. Yeah, I mean, it's always the hope that kills you. Let's be honest about that. Barry, thank you very much indeed. Everyone's tickled by that. Chris is in Hereford. Chris, you want to talk about Andy Burnham, don't you?
Yes, I do. Good morning.
Morning. Very well.
When I read in the news on Monday about Keir Starmer resigning, my emotions was, I don't know, I was happy or sad.
Really?
Sort of thing, but
I was happy. I was sitting there laughing.
I was happy, I was happy because, to be honest, Keir Starmer's a bit of an idiot, isn't he, to be honest? But this bloke that's coming in now, I think he'll be even more big of a disaster than Keir Starmer.
Why do you think that?
Well, he is a good communicator. Don't get me wrong. He's got a bit more charisma than Keir Starmer. But the thing he's got nothing to work with, to be honest. Like, we've got no money. And the thing is, who's he going to appoint as Chancellor? It's either Ed Miliband or Wes Streeting. Well, if he goes Ed Miliband, well, to be honest, he could be in trouble here. I think we'd be capping down to the IMF, begging for some more money, sort of thing. I can't see Starmer lasting at least 6 months.
Burnham, yeah. But easy mistake to make, because again, I just think he's the same as Starmer. There's no plan, there's no philosophy, there's no vision, there's nothing. And as you say, he's got exactly the same set of problems as the last guy, who also had the same set of problems as Rishi Sunak. You have the same set of problems as, Liz Truss. And that's the thing. We've got the same set of problems, and no one is willing to actually grasp the nettle and actually deal with the actual problems we've got. Thank you for that, Chris. Much appreciated. 11:35 is the time. We're going to go straight to a break. And after that, we're going to be talking about one of the big issues we need to be dealing with, and that is defence spending. A bit of a battle over who gets to announce the next defence investment plan. But does it matter at all if it's not enough money? We'll be talking to the former head of the British Army. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 11:37 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Well, coming up very, very soon, in the next few moments, we are going to be seeing the publication of that report into Nottingham University's NHS Trust in their failings in the maternity care. By all accounts, it's very, very damning indeed. We'll bring you conversation about that coming up very soon. First up, though, small matter of, defending the realm, keeping this country safe from the various threats it faces. Only a few weeks ago, the current sitting Duck Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, told his NATO colleagues that we could have a threat, proper full-on threat to Britain by 2030 coming from the likes of Russia. And yet he wanted to publish a defence investment plan which basically didn't even touch the sides of our needs. Only £10 billion in real terms extra cash over a 3-year period for our defence spending. That led, of course, to the Defence Secretary John Healey and his Armed Forces Minister Carls resigning. That helped precipitate the departure of Keir Starmer being announced on Monday. But now we're told he wants to publish that plan, perhaps with some more money or not. But Andy Burnham, the man who's going to be the next Prime Minister, wants to take ownership himself. What is going on? Well, let's talk about all of this with a man who understands what really matters when it comes to defence of our country, the former head of the British Army, General Sir Peter Wall. A very, very good morning to you, sir.
Hello, Julia. How are you?
Very well indeed. Thank you for joining us. So, Peter, look, there's been this battle over this defence investment plan. We've waited over a year for it as it is. Anyone who's paying attention knows we just spent a heck of a lot more money on defence. Is there any inkling, your sources in the MOD and elsewhere, that we are looking at a plan that's going to be published before the next NATO summit on the 7th of July that will actually have more money for defence, and will it be enough?
So I think it's important to understand what the Defence Investment Plan is. It's actually the funding package that goes with the Strategic Defence Review that was approved within the MOD. The SDR was a successful piece of work written by some serious luminaries, obviously with the full weight of MOD staffing behind it. And it was a good document, and it laid out the priorities for the next 5 years for UK defence. And that is essentially a strategic document, and those ambitions can only be met if the resources are provided. And if insufficient resources are provided, then obviously you have to circle back and reset your ambition. So no one's really talked about that bit of it. So if you have essentially a demand for something like 28 billion, which is I think what the chiefs were looking for to enact the SDR, and you're offered 13.5 billion, and some of that is thought to be sleight of hand. It could be closer to 10. I don't understand the math exactly, but that's what people are saying. You've effectively been given a third of the uplift that you need.
Yeah. And that 28 billion was, but that 28 billion was, we are told, pretty much to just keep us going. That wasn't actually going to. It wasn't really a boost. It was just to basically patch holes in the roof.
No, that's true. But if that sum of money isn't forthcoming, then rather than enhancing defence, we shall be into cuts for the short term at least, in order to balance the sort of cash flow in the early years until the point where it might get lifted again. But there's no indication how that will happen if we can't raise those sums of money now. And of course, the challenge for the government is redirecting funds from other departments, not least welfare budget, perhaps, where the demands are very high and the political pain is also very high. Yeah. So I don't think it really matters who announces this thing. And clearly, Mr. Starmer isn't going to want to go empty-handed to the G7 summit with something that's already a year late. But if it's not enough, it doesn't matter who announces it. And I guess the MOD will be in a dilemma as to whether to accept less jam now or hope for Mr. Burnham or whoever it is going to be the next Prime Minister revisiting this. But that will reopen the wrangle with the Treasury and other departments.
Yeah, well, it will indeed. I mean, again, and Andy Burnham, by all accounts, has said he does want to revisit it. There's this talk that Keir Starmer, he wants to attend this NATO summit. He wants to be, having some sort of legacy. I'm not entirely sure that failing to actually fund our defences properly is a legacy he wants. We're in Neville Chamberlain territory. I'm not sure that's going to work out very well for him. But even if he does offer a bit more money, you'd think, well, Well, anyway, if you can do that now, you could have done that before John Healey, your Defence Secretary, resigned, saying there wasn't going to be enough money. So that doesn't make any sense.
I think the only hope for more money is from a new Prime Minister. I don't think Mr. Starmer would, Sir Keir Starmer.
But that of course, that relies on priorities, doesn't it? And that's where we're into the ideology of any new government. And I know that's not your area of focus as such. But if you've got Andy Burnham coming in, and we don't know where he stands on a lot of these big issues, and he's bringing in people like Angela Rayner, who said she doesn't want any cuts in the welfare bill. We've already got the highest borrowing costs. Realistically, where else is any money coming from?
Well, this is, the current regime has demonstrated its complete inability to readjust priorities, and the question is Mr. Burnham, if it is him, is he going to be defined by doing exactly what Sir Keir Starmer has done, which is patently, put the country in a worse place than it was when it started? I mean, we all desperately needed this government to succeed. It had the most immense majority you could imagine, and it's been unable to do anything with it for whatever reason. So we desperately need a reset. We need somebody who has a plan, who can communicate it, and has the courage to push it through.
Yeah.
And those things have been absent up till now.
Why do you think that so many prime ministers, again and again, and we understand why there was the post-Cold War dividend, and of course, great, we don't have to spend so much on defence, we haven't got this looming threat of world war, the Soviet Union. But with the threats creeping up over the years, and certainly once we had the invasion of Crimea in 2014 by Russia, reality check, everybody, we need to start building up a defence. And certainly after the beginning of the Ukraine war proper in 2022, I mean, no one could have been under any doubt. Now, OK, we've had lockdown, we've not got any money, we've had the economic impact, Ukraine war, I understand all of that. But why is it so many politicians simply, when they're in office, they can talk a good game out of office, but when they're in office, do not take the warnings from not just the head of the army, the head of the navy, the head of the Royal Air Force, but the security chiefs, everybody who knows what they're talking about, that we need to spend more and better on defence?
Well, I think it's because the country's short of money, and that's been exacerbated by a number of things over the period since 2014. We've had an awful lot of turbulence, whether it's been, war in Eastern Europe, Brexit, all sorts of other supply chain and energy crises, which have driven up inflation, et cetera. We've got we've got an extortionate amount of interest payments, equivalent to twice the defence budget every year, for example. So we've got into a very deep hole, and people are kind of basing their planning on hope that threats will not arise. And we've gone way beyond the point of properly funding deterrence, which makes us look resilient and deters people from thinking about having a go at UK. Look at the way in which for example, the Russians just flaunt our security in the English Channel. Yes. Look at what they do to our underwater circuitry. Look at what they do with things like Novichok in Salisbury. This is all a consequence of being weak and looking.
Oh, by the way, being behind fire attacks on the Prime Minister's former home.
Well, that you would have thought that would be a warning. The fact is that going to a NATO summit as UK, which until fairly recently was a shining light in NATO and frankly the European lead nation in NATO, which we certainly aren't now. And in terms of meeting our ambitions, we're at the bottom of the pecking order in terms of achieving what we've said we're going to do. We're not at the bottom of the pecking order in terms of our contribution. And of course, one of the reasons why defence is in need of so much more money is because we're renewing our nuclear deterrent.
Yeah, and again, that's another big impact, isn't it? And we'll have to leave it there, but General Sir Peter Wall, always great to talk to you, sir, former head of the British Army. Brief response from Benedict Spence, please.
Oh, no, it's so demoralising when you hear somebody who's been in this position saying we were once one of the leading lights of NATO and now we're very much at the bottom of the pile. I mean, we had Radek Sikorski, I think he was the Polish foreign minister, saying this just the other day. If you want to be taken seriously, you have have to invest like a proper country, which we're not doing.
Yep.
The nuclear deterrent doesn't work properly, needs to be renewed. We need to invest in drones. The whole thing is a mess. And it's a good thing that we're not at war, because otherwise people would see how big of a mess it actually is.
We wouldn't have a choice about it, indeed.
Yeah.
Let's bring you some breaking news just before we go to a very quick break. But the review into Nottingham University Hospital's NHS Trust maternity care has just been published, and it is absolutely damning and shocking. More than 500 mothers and babies suffered potentially avoidable harm or died. 94 babies were stillborn because of deeply embedded systemic failures at a hospital trust that the review has described as toxic. They say that there were serious issues in the maternity department going back years. Management failed to take action to prevent more deaths, and experts on this review carried out by Donna Ockenden, who's a senior midwife, has found that it's the biggest review of maternity care ever taken in the NHS, found deep-rooted problems, including failures in care that may have or substantially impact on the outcome of 6 deaths of mothers as well. We're going to be talking about that up next with former NHS Trust Chairman Roy Lilly. This is Talk. Kemi Badenoch, front page of the Mail on Sunday this weekend, ruling out the possibility of any electoral pact with reform.
But you know what? It's difficult to do a deal with a party that gave us net zero and wrote it into law. It's difficult to do a deal with a party that promised to do one thing and gave us the Boris wave. So for me, it's about trust. Very difficult to trust them.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. PMQ is coming up, of course, at midday, and I wonder if actually this is going to be touched on because it's absolutely extraordinary. This report, the biggest review of maternity care services by the NHS ever undertaken. This is at Nottingham University Hospital's NHS Trust, and overall they found that 520 mothers and babies suffered potentially avoidable harm or death over a number of years, including 6 mothers who died, which they believe could perhaps have been avoidable, and 94 babies who were stillborn. But these are babies who could perhaps have survived. There were 62 neonatal deaths of babies overall, and assessors found that babies died from a range of conditions, but they said that they were potentially avoidable harm, and that this was down to deeply embedded systemic failures at a hospital trust they called toxic, going back many years. Let's talk about this with Roy Lilly. He's a former NHS Trust chairman. Roy, there's no doubt at all this is a very big review. Hundreds of mothers or babies being harmed, some tragically, I mean, very severely harmed, and some tragically actually dying. This is a review into thousands of births, and it is undoubtedly absolutely damning, isn't it?
It's horrendous, Julia. I mean, I've had a very time to digest it, but the thing that strikes me is, I mean, all the clinical aspects of this and the human aspects of this are horrendous, and that needs to be said. But the thing that really strikes me is that this is over 15 years. Yeah. 15 years. So I'm going to come at this as someone who has run places like this. And I think, if I'd had persistent and consistent warnings for 5 years that things aren't right, what would I have done? Well, I'd have certainly done something. And it looks like people here have done nothing. They've just absorbed report after report, said to the chief midwife, well, you better sort this out, and off she's gone and done her best. This is what's called in management circles normalizing deviance. So when bad things go wrong, little bad things go wrong, and then it goes wrong again and again, and people say, well, that's just, it happens here and it happens, everywhere. And so you get into this mindset where these kind of things just go wrong. Then instead of just the little things being cumulative, then the little things accumulate and become bigger things. Yeah. And suddenly you get into this sort of trope of, oh, well, Asian women are this type of patient.
And this is in the report, isn't it? That actually...
Yes, it is. I'm trying to, this sort of... To show listeners, this is how this is accumulated. It's like it's gathered over a period.
There was something that was, they had this general assumption as well, Asian women are more likely to complain about pain, black women are more like this. They were saying this is like blatant sort of racial stereotyping going on. Yeah. But this is the thing, in hospitals and all, there's supposed to be these rules, aren't there, that if there is anything, more deaths in a unit, and we've seen what awful things that that happened in various maternity units and neonatal units and in heart surgery units. If there is a larger number of deaths or mishaps, that is supposed to flag up. Red siren signs. Can someone look into this? Now, there may be a reason. Maybe the cohort of people coming into that hospital are sicker, etc., and they're supposed to be looked into. Does it look like, from what we can see from the report, to say it's literally just been published, that actually it was just a very lax attitude and a sort of, well, as you say, things go wrong, and each horrific tragedy. These are lifetime tragedies. Losing a baby, losing a mother. These are horrific family tragedies that they were just treated as isolated incidents when, in fact, they were part of a pattern of poor care.
Yes, exactly. It's a cultural problem that's come from the normalisation of deviance. And then from that, the NHS has a learning problem. Yeah. It won't learn from what's gone wrong.
Why not? Why would you not, if you go into that sort of profession, you want to help people give birth and to healthy babies and everyone come out healthy and alive, why would you not want every single day to make sure that you improve things?
It's inexcusable and it's inexplicable. I have no idea. We look now for solutions, aren't we? Listening to your customers. That's the first thing you do if you're running a chip shop or a hospital. We call them patients in hospital, but you listen to your customers. It's basic, and that isn't the sort of soft thing to do. So, my mindset now is thinking, okay, what would we do? Well, I would make boards personally responsible and sign some kind of a document, some kind of an accord or maternity standard that they would adhere to. There is talk now, there is talk now in the NHS of taking maternity services out of the NHS, running them as a secondary organisation, and then license hospitals to allow them to provide birthing services. Yeah. Now that sort of appeals, but if you think it through, the problem with that is if people fail the terms of their licence and you have to close them down, where do women go?
Yeah, exactly. And again, you don't want to be travelling 2 hours to go when you're in the late stages of labour. There's lots in this report about how there were there was bullying, there was intimidation, there were other cultural problems with the hierarchy, there was nepotism, there was a culture of organisational denial over the years that Ms. Ockenden has found. And risk assessment, so women were told basically don't come in even though they're in late stages of labour. Some women had written on, we'd seen reports earlier, on their medical files, FOH, which was beep, home, go off home and basically wanting to get them to, a difficult patient. So we've got actually, again, the caring profession, not very caring. There is also an issue, and we've seen this again and again, midwife-led units. We do see high deaths where there's this urge not to intervene when an intervention is actually necessary to save life. People think, well, a natural birth's better. Yes, it is, except where the baby or the mother are going to die or be at risk, in which case you should intervene.
Yes, I agree. And if you look at these midwife-led units and look at what's happening in other countries that are more successful at this than we are, mainly the Nordic countries, they're all midwife-led.
But with a different attitude.
Well, and the other important thing is that the woman has a long-term relationship with the person who looks after her and takes her through that midwifery journey, if I can call it that. So, the moment you present, I'm pregnant, hi, I'm your midwife, I'm going to look after you. And
but however, I never understood this, though. I couldn't care two hoots about this when I was pregnant and when I was in labour. I just wanted highly skilled professionals who knew what they were doing in a good hospital. What if the person I've been dealing with is on holiday the week I go into labour?
Yes, I mean, you get those anomalies, and of course, you have to be sensible about managing them. But what it does, it creates a relationship and it creates a responsibility, and that I think is what's missing.
That could make a difference.
Yes, I mean, this is not really how do we fix maternity. That's not really the question. The question is, how do we run an organisation that listens to these early warning signs?
But this is the thing. We've got this again and again and again. Trust after trust after trust, where there's a problem with this department, that department. I think that perhaps the maternity is one that we really focus on. We've all been born. We've all. Most of us are going to have kids, or our friends or siblings are going to have kids. We care about our babies, but again and again, NHS Trust not listening to whistleblowers, not doing anything, not learning lessons, and people still dying. And it seems to me, how many more reviews? Maybe the problem is the NHS structure. Just saying that. Roy Lilly, thank you so much for joining us. Former NHS Trust Chairman, thank you very much indeed for joining us. That review just been published in the last few moments. We'll get your thoughts of Benedict Spencer, and you're welcome to call in as well on that 0344 499 1000. We're going to take PMQ's live. It's going to be very bizarre. If Keir Starmer's more of a lame duck than he was before, no doubt that review may even be mentioned as well. That's all coming up. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back to the show. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. It's 2 minutes past midday. Prime Minister's Questions has just started. The Prime Minister's on his feet answering the first question. We'll go live there in just a couple of seconds. A little bit of a quip. You know, he always says, what has he done today? He's had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. Someone shouted, Andy, and he said no. Not today. A little quip there. But we'll see what's going to come up at PMQs. We're going to be talking about it afterwards with Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator and Talk presenter Peter Cardwell. We're going to be having words with them about both of their outfits in just a couple of minutes. You could see what I could see right now in this heat. Let's go live to the House of Commons.
He should be worrying about school, football, friends and what he wants to be when he grows up. Instead, he is living with a high-grade brain tumour and there is no cure available to him. His parents, Jackie and Stephen, want to know, why are children still being diagnosed with brain tumours and told there's no treatment options available? Why has brain tumour research remained so underfunded when brain tumours kill more children and adults under 40 than any other cancer? And why are families like them left to search for hope themselves? This Prime Minister has done so much to strengthen our NHS. So does he agree with me that we need to move at pace and do much more to offer hope to Max and his family and families like his facing this unequally devastating disease?
Can I just say my thoughts, and I'm sure the thoughts of the whole House, are with Max and his family in what must be the most awful of circumstances. Through our Cancer Trials Accelerator programme, we'll make it easier to launch innovative new clinical trials and find new treatment. And for people like Max, that will mean make young people's cancer a research priority, make clinical trials more accessible, and pay for his travel costs for care. I hope that comes as some comfort, but as a parent, I can't imagine what his family are going through, given the circumstances that he faces. And I know that a minister would be happy to meet Max and his family.
Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Bednall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I associate this side of the House with the Prime Minister's remarks on the horrific train crash, the attacks in Edinburgh, and, of course, Armed Forces Week? I want to start by congratulating the Prime Minister. He's the other party leader who won a by-election last week. Although I think I'm much happier with my new MP than he is with his. 2 weeks ago, Mr. Speaker, 2 weeks ago, the Prime Minister told the House that the government was funding defence and everything was under control. The very next day, the Defence Secretary resigned, saying the Prime Minister was unable and the Treasury unwilling to fund the defence of our country. What changed?
Well, Mr. Speaker, she references the by-election. I'm very pleased with our new Member of Parliament. Can I also say to her, in Gorton and Denton, the Tories got 1.9% of the vote. Can I congratulate her, because in Makerfield, they got 2.2% of the vote. Just edging past Count Binface. She says they're winning everywhere. At that rate, it'll take them 500 years to get back into power. Mr. Speaker, meanwhile, back on these benches, we've delivered the biggest sustained boost to defence spending since the 1980s. That's £270 billion over this Parliament. That, Mr. Speaker, is a record. The Defence Investment Plan will take that even higher. That's about facing the future. We'll finalise the plan with the Defence Secretary and we'll have it published before the NATO summit.
Mr. Speaker, I think the Prime Minister forgot to mention that in Aberdeen South we got 50%. And he says that he's funding defence. The truth is, he wouldn't be in this mess if his Chancellor had found money for the Defence Investment Plan. The Prime Minister gave her the second most important job in Britain. She was the first female Chancellor. She lives next door to him, but wouldn't even come out to stand by him during his resignation speech. She was too busy getting ready for a selfie with the new leader. Does the Prime Minister feel let down by his Chancellor?
This is the Chancellor who ended austerity inflicted on our country for 14 long years. This is the Chancellor who got the economy growing, Mr. Speaker. She doesn't normally want to talk about the economy. That's because in the first quarter of this year, the UK had the fastest growing economy in the G7. Our growth was upgraded by the IMF and the OECD. Last week, unemployment was down. Inflation was better than better. That is because with this chance we have the right economic plan and we can weather the global storms in the war that she wanted to jump into.
Mr. Speaker, they're cheering so loudly. If it's all going so fine, why is he resigning? The fact is, she did let him down. She's the one who snatched the winter fuel payments. She's the one who announced a disastrous budget that killed economic growth. And because of her, once again, a Labour Prime Minister is leaving office with unemployment higher than when he came in. But the Chancellor isn't the only person who let him down. The Energy Secretary is putting up bills and killing jobs. He was, he's not here, is he? He was a failed Labour leader, rejected by the electorate, brought back from the wilderness by this man, and when the going got tough, he jumped into bed with the Mayor of Manchester. Yeah, it's not the first time he's betrayed someone close to him, is it? Yeah. But does the Prime Minister think that this treachery should be rewarded by being appointed Chancellor?
Mr. Speaker, the Chancellor and I picked up our party 6 years ago from the worst defeat since 1935. We turned it around and we made it face the country. And we won a landslide general election, giving them the biggest drubbing in their history. To this Chancellor, we've delivered the fastest fall in NHS waiting list for 17 years. We've the money for new rights for renters and working people, and we're lifting 500,000 children out of poverty. Mr. Speaker, the test for every Prime Minister is handing over the country in better shape than you found it. I know I can do that, which is more than can be said for her predecessor, her predecessor's predecessor, and her predecessor's predecessor's predecessor.
Mr. Speaker, once again I have to ask, if it's all so fantastic, why is he resigning? And I think it is very generous of the Prime Minister to stick by his ministers because they didn't stick by him. He can say what he likes, but the people of Aberdeen gave their verdict. They gave their verdict on his Energy Secretary by voting Conservative. But to be fair, Mr. Speaker, to be fair, they're not all traitors and deserters. Some of his cabinet have been loyal and incompetent. Hands up if you think the Education Secretary is doing a good job. Even she doesn't think she's doing a good job, Mr. Speaker. Even she doesn't think she's doing a good job. Just, someone did. Just for those who raised their hands, the two people who raised their hands, yesterday a poll found that 0% of teachers think the Education Secretary is doing a good job. 0%. She taxed private schools to pay for more teachers, but the number of teachers has gone down. Yeah. It turns out appointing a spiteful class warrior as Education Secretary was a disaster. Yeah. Does the Prime Minister agree? Does the Prime Minister agree that he has been let down by her incompetence?
Prime Minister. The Education Secretary grew up in poverty. Yeah. She knows exactly what it means to grow up in poverty. She was once reluctant to tell her story. I know her story. It's an incredible story of social mobility and success. I am so proud that she is sitting there, and so should everybody in this country who cares about social mobility. She knows that for poor children, education is absolutely vital, and that is why it drives every single priority and value that she has. I would have thought the party opposite would recognise and understand some of that, but they've fallen so low they don't.
Mr. Speaker, the fact is that if she knew so much about poor children, she wouldn't have given them fewer teachers. Teacher numbers have gone down. Teacher numbers have gone gone down. It's amazing. I've never seen this much excitement on the Labour benches. Yes, cheering so loudly while there are 400 knives stuck in his back. Shame on them. Shame on them. They don't like it up them, but they know that what I'm saying is true. And Mr. Speaker, there were times when the Prime Minister tried to do the right thing. He did try to cut welfare. And who stopped him? Those MPs behind him. In the words of the Welfare Secretary, his MPs only want to know who they can tax to fund more benefits. They are not Labour MPs, they are welfare MPs. Does the Prime Minister feel betrayed by the people he got into Parliament?
Sorry, Prime Minister. Can I just say, let us think about the language we're using. I think that'll be the first to leave, please. Can I just say, think about the language we're using, because when we leave this chamber, don't be surprised when constituents feel they can use the same language against each other. Let us show a little bit more decorum and respect to each other. Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was trying to do all of this with as much good grace as I could, but I shall certainly miss these exchanges. I'm very proud of every one of our MPs who, with a landslide Labour victory, coming from all different backgrounds, from all different places across the country. We inflicted the biggest loss on the Tory party opposite in the history of their party. We picked up our party, we turned it around. We had to address what went wrong. We turned it around. We won a landslide victory. She won't even address or even talk about their failure after 14 long years.
Can we bend or not?
Mr. Speaker, he is the one who is resigning because of his MPs. There's no point trying to distract from it. And let's be honest, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has made many mistakes, otherwise he wouldn't be going. But he has also been let down. I'm only saying what his staff have been briefing. He has been let down by an energy secretary who is killing industry, let down by a chancellor who is killing jobs, let down by backbenchers who don't understand that government is about tough choices. He U-turned again and again and again to appease them, and now they've abandoned him. And what for? A pair of eyelashes and a black T-shirt. Isn't the truth that whoever is in charge, Mr. Speaker, isn't the truth that whoever is in charge, the real problem is the Labour Party?
Mr. Speaker, 2 years ago, I walked into Number 10 and found a broken economy, broken public services and broken trust in politics. Because of our decisions, my decision, the country is moving in the right direction, a stronger and a fairer Britain, ending austerity, investing in our public services, the fastest fall in NHS waiting lists for 17 years, more rights for workers, more rights for renters, standing with Ukraine, Britain's reputation restored and 500,000 children being lifted out of poverty. Change promised by a Labour government, fought for by a Labour government, change delivered by a Labour government.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My Hendon constituency is proud.
What a rip-roaring PMQs that was. If you were expecting it to be a bit of a lame duck, what with a lame duck Prime Minister, you'd be sorely wrong. Kemi Badenoch was absolutely not pulling her punches there. Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator, talk presenter Peter Carlbot, both joining me in the studio watching that. I mean, the pace of that, the level of attacks, the fact that the Speaker, I'm pretty sure who it was aimed at, basically stopped at one point halfway through. Can we just adjust our language? Don't be surprised if, our constituents speak to us in the same way. That was brutal, Peter Carlbot.
Absolutely brutal. 400 knives in his back. If everything's so fine, why are they resigning?
It's a fair point.
Yeah, well, yes. Why betraying people close to him? I mean, there are a lot of very personal jibes of the Prime Minister there. There are two very different conversations as well. Kemi Badenoch talking about the brutality of the Labour Party. Keir Starmer trying to say, everything's fine, my Chancellor's lovely and wonderful, my Education Secretary's fantastic. Interestingly, though, he didn't defend Ed Miliband and asked about that.
He didn't mention Ed Miliband.
And he didn't mention Ed Miliband. He didn't really defend Bridget Phillipson. He said she's come from a poor background, which she has.
There's nothing about her policies.
He didn't say she was a good Education Secretary.
He was rather more effusive about his Chancellor, but it was very interesting, wasn't it, Benedict? That as Kemi Badenoch pointed out, the Chancellor was busy getting, she wasn't by his side. The fact that actually on Monday, now obviously when we were seeing the footage of Keir Starmer, we didn't have, we were in the studio and we couldn't see, all who was lined up. You see the staff on one side and ministers and MPs on the other. But actually, a lot of his very senior MPs and ministers were not there, including the Chancellor. I mean, we know that she's been desperate to get herself a job with Andy Burnham, and it looks like it's going to be something, but certainly not Chancellor. But that, I mean, the only person he did defend was Rachel Reeves.
It was that. I mean, that was a proper filleting. That was spectacular. I mean, but the funny thing is, of course,
that was borderline evil.
Well, I mean, the Speaker intervening to basically go, stop. He's already dead. Just stop going over him. But the point here actually wasn't even so much that she was going over the Prime Minister because he is already gone. It was going through forensically all those other people on the front bench who will still be around and going, OK, now that you're gone, let's see what we can do with some of your reputations, because it's not been brilliant for any of you. I thought in particular the lack of actual defence of Bridget Phillips and just going, oh, don't be mean to her, she's poor, she came up from a poor background. That's not actually a particularly good response.
The camera flashed at one point. She didn't seem that happy about that. She grew up in poverty. What's that got to do with
that? Why does that make her a good education secretary?
And calling her a spiteful class warrior, putting VAT on private school fees, which has led to a lot of kids actually leaving private school. A lot of those actually special needs kids, only in private school because last desperate bid to get them some kind of semblance of education. And that was the deal that was going to give extra money for state schools. And actually we've seen a drop in the number of teachers in state schools, not an increase. And that's very specific, isn't it? But there was a little bit of point scoring, wasn't there, over by-elections at first there, wasn't there, Benedict? And it was just, there was quite a good quip at the beginning, wasn't it? Congratulations on your by-election victory. But of course, there were 3 by-elections last week, not just Makerfield, and of course we had that stunning victory for the Tories in Aberdeen South, which we hadn't paid as much attention to because that MP, we don't have to know his name because he's not about to be our Prime Minister. But she said, I think I'm happier with my MP.
Well, it's all a very tricky thing because the only thing actually that I think Starmer did land was pointing out the vote share in both Gorton and Denson and Makerfield. Well, we have to be clear here. The Conservatives are basically alive because Kemi Badenoch is very good at her job. Beyond that,
she's way more popular than the party.
The party would be dead. It probably should be dead. It's being kept alive, solely by her sort of force of personality. So any idea that this was some sort of renaissance for the Conservatives, no. They were just the only ones standing in a constituency that is, built on oil, that wasn't sat there going, well, we're going to shut down the oil industry. Yeah. So it's not a surprise that they won it, and I doubt that they'd keep it at a general election. Needs to be said. But ultimately, if you do then take a step back and say, OK, fine, they've not really been a show in town of the last couple of by-elections, Caerphilly, Gorton and Denton, whatever it is, she is still able to deliver these performances back and forward. So even though Reform are still polling that much higher and the Conservatives are still broadly loathed, she's doing a very good job, and every time
Nigel
she has this
Farage gets an occasional question when it's guaranteed as one of the other party leaders, the smaller party leaders, negotiation, they get that. She gets 6 every single week. Ed Davey gets his 2, the Lib Dems every single week, and that's a big benefit, isn't it? I thought also, Peter Colbert, it was very interesting that she went down this list of MPs, but she was also saying, crucially, isn't the problem, it's the Labour Party is the problem, because at the end of the day you can attack Keir Starmer and by the way, all credit to her, because I did say on Monday morning and I tweeted as well, everyone's going to be nice about it because now he's resigning. No, he's a terrible Prime Minister, did a terrible job, and he thinks we're all bigots for wanting things like a grooming gang inquiry or for calling out 2-tier policing. Like, he's not a good person who tried to do a good job. He's neither of those things, and all credit to him, and there's simply no love lost between them at all, is there?
There's not, and that brutality, I think, was on display on Monday, and very, very clear honesty. The Conservatives in the most recent poll I've seen are at 20%, Reform UK at 25%, Labour at 18%. So it's having some impact. She is more popular than the party, but I think with the Conservatives, people are certainly giving them more of a hearing at the moment. Prime Minister's question is one of the few times where Kemi Badenoch can really show her true colours, show her mettle. She's done that this week.
Is there going to be a little bit of a backlash of sort of, Benedict, don't kick a man when he's down?
No, I think it's absolutely fine. That's what a piñata's for. You're supposed to keep on going until you've wrung
politics
everything
is about, I'm afraid.
You don't get into this job because you won't be able to be nice. It's why it's so nonsense.
And you need someone who's going to be ruthless.
It's why it's such nonsense when people talk about the politics of division. You're kind of sat there going, well, yeah, that's the point. You're different parties. Everybody's divided. It's how it works. But, I mean, he's on the out now, and, we can soon just forget all about him and concentrate on the set of eyelashes and the T-shirt, which was another particularly good line.
That was another great line.
Great line.
His own parties let him down for a pair of eyelashes and a black T-shirt. I have to say,
here we go.
During lockdown, when everyone started doing things on Zoom, and I just remember very vividly watching Andy Burnham because he was on camera, they were all set up, and then sort of moved away, but his camera had moved, but we hadn't, and we were in the control room watching him put his makeup on for the interview. And I've got no issue because you need basically. I mean, you look like you're in a police cell being questioned if you don't have telly makeup on. You look pale and pasty and sweaty, and so God knows what.
Some of us still do after makeup.
You have to trowel in on for the TV cameras. Then you look like a clown when you're walking home. But it was just fascinating watching. But I was I'm not going to lie, we were all having a chuckle. But there was also an element where I'm like, at least he's being professional. He gets that you need to do this stuff. But I mean, just look, because I don't get a chance to get you in the studio, I don't get to listen to you in the evenings, Peter. In terms of where we are today, lots of people have gone, well, that's enough politics for now. We're worried about the weather. But in this situation where we've got Andy Burnham, who's still, Rachel Reeves is out as Chancellor. That was a given, surely. BBC reported this morning like this was a major breaking news. Like, you think you could be a new broom and you're going to keep Rachel Reeves, who's so unpopular.
Or any Chancellor, but particularly her.
Exactly, but Ed Miliband or Wes Streeting. We've got a new Chief of Staff, James Purnell. They're old muckers. He used to be at the BBC. He's been
big mates with Mandelson.
Big mates. Oh, they're all big mates with Mandelson. I knew James Purnell at university. I knew them all at university. They're all the same crew, But this is the thing. It's really increasingly obvious that this is a man who had a plan to become Prime Minister and absolutely zero plan of what to do when he became Prime Minister.
I spoke to someone yesterday who's known Andy Burnham for 30 years, and I said, what does he believe? And that person said, I don't really know.
Well, we didn't know with Keir Starmer either.
Yes,
he was going to be elected as a lefty in 2020 as a Labour leader and then went to be a Blairite.
I just think that Andy Burnham is going to be the Liz Truss of this party. He's going to come in. He has no plan, he doesn't know what he wants to do, and it's going to be a disaster.
But he's got better communication skills, Solicitor. They are counting on this, aren't they? Communication skills,
we're so done with that.
As if that was the problem.
They've got to communicate something. The Titanic didn't have a communications problem, the Titanic had an iceberg problem.
No, it's a pretty good analogy, actually. Under New Labour, and that's just the problem why you talk about, well, they're all friends with Mandelson. They're all still, many of these people, still in that New Labour mindset of, we can go back to that and everything will be fine. But we're so far beyond that in terms of the structural problems. You can't spin your way out of them.
No, indeed. Right, look, we are going to get calls in and we do have to go to a break. But before we do that, I've got to have a word with you both about... Can we talk about sartorial standards during this heat wave? You get these blokes who wander around with their chests at night. Look, if you're an Adonis... Feel free.
All right,
Not in the office, though.
You say so.
No, for the love of God, do that button up again. On your...
Please. We've been through enough.
I've already had a bit of a go at young Benedict for the state he turned up in. Yeah, without that jacket, which is also questionable. He looks like he's running a souk in Marrakesh. Peter
for you,
Caldwell,
Julia, good price.
Good for you, very
good price.
Can I just say, Peter Caldwell looks very dashing in his very smart pink shirt. Underneath that desk, though, is the most totally, utterly unacceptable pair of football shorts. I mean, at least they weren't as small as Andy Burnham's jogging shorts. But seriously, you're at work. What is going on, everybody?
They're really
it's hot.
Carbs
it's
very
hot.
Well.
That's
Do you have no acceptable office wear for hot weather?
You're excited and happy about my legs. You're only Julia. You're only human. But the person who's had the best day in the office so far is our boss, is the Ayatollah of audio himself, Danny Morris, who was sitting in his office. I'd gone to a very discreet part of the office behind, a sort of away from everybody, kind of down a little back bit where no one could see me, where I changed my polo shirt into my shirt. Well, I'm going to put my polo shirt back on. And then Danny said, I just saw all of that from my office.
Oh, God.
Lucky man.
Lucky man. Just resign now. Walk away.
That's the only option.
That's a perk of being the boss, right?
Yeah, you get to see...
No one needs to see that.
You want to be a star, don't you, Peter?
I'm just relieved it was top half, not bottom half. That's all I'm saying. Good Lord, people.
Wow.
Sartorial standards, please.
It's hot in here.
26
You're only human.
This is the high-level political debate you get here on Talk, no doubt. So I'm going to take your calls, which will be much more sensible. Up next, this is Talk. Really big knock, because front page of the Mail on Sunday this weekend, ruling out the possibility of any electoral pact with reform.
But you know what? It's difficult to do a deal with a party that gave us net zero and wrote it into law. It's difficult to do a deal with a party that promised to do one thing and gave us the Boris wave. So for me, it's about trust. Very difficult to trust them.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense. Coming up in just a few moments, we're going to be talking to the former Prime Minister of Australia, Tony Abbott, talk about, well, how life changes when you become a Prime Minister or leave as a Prime Minister. First up there, let's talk to you on the phone line, so 344 499 1000. Peter is in Liverpool. Peter, what do you make of PMQs and what do you make of Andy Burnham?
Not a lot of Andy Burnham, but what I rang for was that he's been advised to cut the triple lock to fund defence. And what really riles me, what annoys me, is that pensioners seem to be top of the list, like the fuel allowance bill.
Yeah.
And it never springs to mind that the funding for migrants or the welfare or the diabolical HS2, the waste of money, the money that's wasted in this country is unbelievable.
And it's always pensioners. I mean, again, the winter fuel allowance was a completely bizarre announcement. But here's the thing: we don't know for sure. We have no idea. But of course, for Labour, pensioners are more likely to vote on the right wing, and therefore they'll think they're not attacking their own people. But there'll be millions of again, working people, who've worked all their lives and say, I deserve this. Many economists, even on the left, are saying the triple lock is unaffordable.
I quite understand that. And as a pensioner, and coming from the kind of background that I come from, most pensioners want to pull together when things are tight. Yeah. They will pull together. But they do seem to be getting picked on. Yeah. And, there's plenty of waste in the economy. Yeah,
and working age people shouldn't be on benefits. I get what you're thinking, and I can see. I haven't got time for Benedict Spence rolling his eyes, but not rudely to you, but just the fact that actually it's the young people who have actually had a harder deal over the years. But again, there are plenty of pensioners who are still struggling themselves. Peter, a really interesting call. Thank you. That's going to be an interesting debate coming up, isn't it? Let's talk to Ian now in London. Now, Ian, you wanted to respond to that absolutely shocking report into Nottingham University Hospital's NHS Trust, and 520 mothers and babies potentially are being harmed, being harmed or dying. 94 babies being stillborn, 6 women dying, or most likely avoidable harm, avoidable death. A shocking report. What do you make of it?
Julia, as a retired nurse and whistleblower and bereaved due to medical negligence, I'm not shocked at all. Yeah. I don't need to read it because I already know what's in it, because I've read previous reports like the SAT report. Yeah. Now, this catastrophe is nationwide. It's not just Nottingham. And it's been gathering momentum and snowballing over the past 50 years. You'll have to forgive me because I'm quite annoyed.
I completely understand.
Been in denial because the perpetrators were winning.
That's interesting. They must be nice people.
Yes, really nice people. I've seen the whites of the eyes of these individuals when I did a stint on a maternity unit. Monsters are beasts of opportunity, as was in Ravensbrück under the Nazis.
I think we might be unnecessary, I think, to make those comparisons. I don't think those are helpful to anybody. But there is just an idea that, well, by definition, midwives are good people, therefore they can't do anything wrong, and as opposed to just being realistic and going, we've got a problem and we need to look into it, and if people aren't doing their job well or incompetent, then we need to get rid of them, we need to improve things. I don't know why anyone wouldn't think that.
Julia, all the good people have been driven out. I worked with good people. Yeah. I was of a group of trainee midwives. Well, we were trainee nurses. we were being upgraded. We were all in our 30s, and we went en masse to complain to the director, and we were slapped down. All 30 of us.
Yeah.
And the good people have been driven out due to the toxic.
And we do see this again and again. Whistleblowers, as you say, you were a whistleblower, and they're the ones who can seen as the troublemakers, as opposed to the people who aren't doing their job properly. You know, I wish we had more time to have this conversation. Thank you very, very much for calling. I do appreciate that, and I do understand your concerns, and I agree with you. You almost don't need to read the report. You kind of already know what's in it because we've seen so many of them. Right, we're going to take a quick break. Just before we do, TalkSport have teamed up with Meantime to create a lager in time for the World Cup. It's called So Good Lager, which will be poured from all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. So whether you're watching the action this summer or settling in for an afternoon with your friends, hopefully somewhere cool, make sure you check out talksport.com/so good to find your nearest pub. Of course, So Good is 18 plus, and please drink responsibly. And of course, although it didn't feel like the World Cup kicked off yesterday with last night's match of England and Ghana, but here at Talk we are celebrating in style. That's why we're giving you the chance to boost your bank balance with a massive £26,000 in tax-free cash for a summer you won't forget. Here's how to enter.
For your chance to win, visit talk.tv/win or text TALK to 8338 by 6 p.m. on the 20th of July 2026. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or send your name and number by post to Comp 1, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP, to arrive by midnight on the 23rd of July 2026. 18 plus, UK residents only. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 8338 now. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. 12:36 is the time coming up. We're going to be talking about this heat wave, and it's all due to climate change, and we're all going to die. But couldn't we just put in air conditioning and everyone could just relax? Wouldn't that be a more obvious solution? We'll talk about that with Andrew Montfort from Net Zero Watch. First up, though, let's go live to a conference we've been talking about all week. This is the ARC conference in London. It's their final day today, the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship conference. A lot of our favourite folk, very sensible voices there, including, I'm delighted to say, our next guest, Tony Abbott, former Prime Minister of Australia. A very good afternoon to you.
And Julia, wonderful to be here in London at the ARC conference and talking to you and your listeners.
Can I just clarify, as an Aussie, are you disturbed by the weather here, or are you finding this just totally sort of shrug weather, not a problem?
Look, it's like a Sydney summer's day, a bit of a steam bath, but yes, you just turn the air conditioning up or you go out for a swim. If needs be, run around in the garden under a sprinkler, but there are all sorts of ways of beating the heat.
Top tips, everybody.
And this, yeah, and Julia, this idea that there's somehow a climate catastrophe just because you get the odd hot day, the odd cold day, the odd stormy day. We've always had heat, we've always had cold, we've always had storms. And the idea that we should turn our society upside down in order to change the weather, A, we can't, given that emissions are increasing in China, Russia, America and elsewhere, and B, a slightly warmer world may well be a somewhat better world.
Well, yes, there's plenty of evidence in terms of crop growing, and human beings have always thrived more in warmer weather rather than colder. It's the next ice age we should be worrying about. In fact, I think in the 1970s, that's what the same scientists telling us about we're all going to die because of the heat were warning us about. And isn't that a wonderful thing that we had the Industrial Revolution so we can make products that could cool our homes or heat our homes? It's almost like human ingenuity can deal with these things.
Exactly right, Julia. Yet, ever since we had an electricity system that's fundamentally run to reduce emissions rather than to produce affordable and reliable power, we've been getting ourselves into trouble. Jobs have gone, industries have gone, prices have gone up, the cost of living has increased, and in the end, the main beneficiary has been Communist China, because they're making the solar panels and the windmills that are mucking up our power supply.
Yeah, absolutely. But of course, net zero, something you've railed against and I have for a long time, has been a major part of this current Keir Starmer government. And I think it was interesting at PMQs, we just heard Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the opposition, have a go at a number of key figures in Keir Starmer's government, including Ed Miliband, the net zero secretary, could possibly be our next chancellor. Would you welcome that?
Look, I think that the current Labor government, regardless of personnel, is really struggling to deal with the problems of the country. The union links make it very hard to boost productivity. The emissions obsession makes it impossible to fix the energy system. Identity politics makes it very hard to promote national pride. And of course, their big government instincts mean that welfare payments just go up and up and up. Regulation just goes up and up and up, and that's suffocating the economic dynamism of what should be the most creative country on earth, apart from Australia, of course.
Oh, I thought you'd get that in. And it is fascinating how much that dominates, how much that dominates things, isn't it? What do you make of it? You were Prime Minister of Australia 2013 to 2015. Our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, he hasn't even lasted quite 2 years. It will be 2 years by the time he actually goes, we believe, 17th of July. It looks like there won't be any other contender against Sandy Burnham. Do you feel sorry for him?
Look, in a sense, yes, Julia, because to be the Prime Minister of Great Britain is obviously the most wonderful privilege and honour that any Briton can have. It's the most consequential job in the country. Those who aspire to it take it incredibly seriously, regardless of their politics. And I guess when it's over, there's inevitably regret, wonder about what might have been done differently. But in the end, while I think politics is a noble vocation, it is a hard and unforgiving one. And if your colleagues don't think you're performing, out you go.
Yeah, certainly, and he is going to be going out. I don't know how much you know about Andy Burnham, the man who's going to be our next Prime Minister. By all accounts, the King of the North, about to get a coronation as the Prime Minister of this entire country. We're hearing various things about, people he wants to appoint in various jobs. We're not hearing much by way of policy. We've had a little bit, apparently social justice and growing the economy. I don't think we've ever had a leader saying, I don't want social justice and I don't want to grow the economy. He seems to have had a plan to be Prime Minister, but not a plan when he actually became Prime Minister. How important is it when you get into office, whether by an election, whether by a leadership contest with your own party, how important is it to hit the ground running and this mythical 100 days we hear about?
Julia, it's absolutely critical, because if you don't know exactly what you want to do, you will be told what to do by the civil service, and that's inevitably more of the same, and more of the same is not good enough in contemporary Britain. Plainly, contemporary Britain needs to lift its game in a whole range of respects, and that's why it's not enough just to want the top job. You've got to have a very specific plan for change, and let's hope he's got one, as an Australian, I want Britain to succeed. I really do. I do want Britain to succeed. So I hope this guy turns out to be, you know, Thatcher Mark II, only in the Labor Party. Maybe Bob Hawke Mark II, only a British version, because Bob Hawke was a very successful Australian Prime Minister from the Labor side. So I hope he succeeds, but he's got to have a radically different mindset to that of his predecessor, and I suspect he's going to have a huge fight with his own party if in fact he is to do what Britain needs right now.
Assuming he plans to do that. I mean, in terms of how I know you spend a lot of time in the UK, but in terms of how the rest of the world is seeing us, and particularly when you think about, you know, our close relations with, you know, the other Anglosphere countries, the Five Eyes group we're with Australia, and of course AUKUS, the defence deal. 7 prime ministers we're about to have had in just 10 years. Are we becoming a laughingstock? Are we, with our failure to deal with key issues like our defence spending and our capability, are we becoming sort of less of an important ally? Does that matter?
Well, it does matter, because it will be a worse world without a strong Britain. I think right around the world, for the best part of 250 years, lots and lots of people have looked to Britain for leadership in science, in culture, in freedom, institutional strength, in military security. People have looked to Britain. Britain has in some respects been the world's most successful country. It's given us the world's common language, the mother of parliaments, the Industrial Revolution, the emancipation of minorities, and yet I think there has been this besetting spirit of defeatism and declinism. People like Margaret Thatcher and Tony Blair, in their different ways, were exceptions to this. Boris Johnson tried, but in the end didn't succeed. And yeah, I think that people do look at contemporary Britain and wonder what's gone wrong. I mean, just contrast the fact that within 48 hours of the invasion of the Falklands, the Royal Navy could assemble some 40 ships to sail to the South Atlantic. Now it takes 2 weeks to deploy a single destroyer to Cyprus. Something is gravely wrong.
Please
and
don't
it's got to be
remind us.
fixed.
Please don't remind us. Now, you touched on a few things there in terms of our history. We're constantly seeing attacks on our history and our culture here in terms of, you know, Winston Churchill was a racist, you know, our history of empire was terrible. We were responsible apparently for the only slavery the world's ever had. Everyone forgets apparently, you know, that we actually were the only empire to end slavery. You've got a new book out, published just last month, Australia, a History, does exactly what it says on the tin, from convict colony to great democracy. You fought a lot of the same battles in Australia as well, with these sort of movements to sort of place even in the indigenous community, Aboriginal, to have greater rights over legislation than those who are the descendants of people who've, you know, the convicts, people who've come from other nations. How do we fight back against these attacks on, I suppose, I mean, you know, the very heart of what has made us, well, I like to think both countries, great democracies?
Well, Julia, we fight back by telling the truth. And sure, every country has some less than perfect episodes in its past, but on balance, the story of Australia, like the story of Britain, is a great story, a really wonderful story. Within 100 years of our foundation, modern Australia had gone from a bedraggled penal colony to a series of colonies with the world's highest standard of living. We were democratic pioneers. Men had the vote. All men had the vote in Australia some 60 years before Britain. Yeah. All women had the vote in Australia some 30 years before Britain. So it's not just a story of, I guess, redemption, as the convicts built new lives for themselves in Australia, and then millions of migrants, first from Britain but then from all around the world, built a better life for themselves and their children. I mean, it's a heroic story, and it deserves to be better appreciated than it is. But likewise, the story of Britain. I, many years ago, read Churchill's History of the English-Speaking Peoples, and if anyone wants a riveting, rollicking, uplifting account of the history of the world from an English-speaking perspective, Churchill's 4-volume history
He's your man.
is an absolute must-read.
A bit of light summer reading on a hot summer's day. Tony Abbott, thank you so much for joining us. Always so good to talk to you. Former Prime Minister of Australia, there, Tony Abbott, live from the ARC Conference, the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship Conference in London. So it's a bit loud, though, but we did want to get a chance to talk to him. In fact, our next guest will also be from the conference. A lot of our favourite people are there today. Benedict Spence, it is interesting to get that perspective, isn't it, about, not just the climate catastrophe stuff. And he's so much sort of on... they're battling so many of the same things in Australia as we are here.
They are, and this is something that sort of affected what you would call the entire Anglosphere. Sadly, it's because much of it is downstream of US politics. Yeah. We're kind of beholden to the insanity that often crops up on US university campuses and then ends up in mainstream media and politics and then ends up here as well because we take our cues from them. But, crucially, he's also given us some tips on how to stay cool, including, run under a sprinkler, which, given that the government will inevitably ban your hose pipe in a couple of days'
you make a good point.
What am I supposed to do with that?
Work here. Fair point, worth making. Tony Abbott, come back on. 12:49 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be talking about that. Is that the solution? Andrew Montfort, Director of Net Zero Watch, be up here next. This is Talk. Kemi Badenoch, front page of the Mail on Sunday this weekend, ruling out the possibility of any electoral pact with reform.
But you know what? It's difficult to do a deal with a party that gave us net zero and wrote it into law. It's difficult to do a deal with a party that promised to do one thing and gave us the Boris wave. So for me, it's about trust. Very difficult to trust them.
UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. For me, Julia Hartley-Brewer, 12:51. Just some breaking news for you. Andy Burnham, apparently, looking set to set up a number 10 in the north, moving part of his prime ministerial operation to Manchester in a radical attempt to shift power beyond Westminster. It's a devolution of power if he becomes Prime Minister next month. I mean, that's just a load of extra travel costs and hotels, isn't it? Benedict Spence.
It's just so unserious. It's just vibes politics. Oh, let's move it to Manchester. Let's move the Treasury to Darlington. Why do they do it? Why do they bother with it?
Just, so painful. Oh. Anyway, I mean, surely they don't approve of people driving. That's bad. You're not allowed to drive anymore. We've been told today, don't get the railways, because it's hot, because we're all going to die of climate change. Well, let's talk about that with Andrew Montfort. He's Director of Net Zero Watch. He's also live from the ARC Conference. That's the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship in London. Good afternoon to you, Andrew.
Good afternoon, Julia.
Thank you so much for joining us. Just want to check, are we going to survive this heat wave, or are we all going to die?
I would say probably that we will survive. We will get a bit hot and a bit sweaty, but no, we will survive. And those of us with air conditioning will survive in extreme comfort. It's so crazy, isn't it, the way that people react these days? I mean, I can remember 1976, and it was like this for the best part of 6 weeks.
It wasn't quite this hot, to be fair, but it was for longer. It wasn't something to cope with for a few days.
Yeah, and it lasted for a long time. But, you get hot weather and it's not a crisis. We are very good at adapting to hot weather. I mean, as people in hot countries know, if you get air conditioning, it's just not a problem, really. So, you get air-conditioned buses, air-conditioned trains, air-conditioned houses, and there is no problem anymore. So, yeah, we should just stop panicking about it. But, unfortunately, people want us to panic.
Well, that's the thing. Is it the great British public that, frankly, have lost, a lot of their stiff upper lip backbone in recent years, and I think that might be a part of that. Or is it we're constantly told, instead of, oh, it's going to be very, very hot, be a bit careful, but, you know, get out in the sunshine if you can, good week to take holiday. No, instead it's all catastrophised. Every bit of weather is catastrophised, and we know we're being told this is due to climate change, and it wouldn't be this hot if it wasn't climate change, and we're more likely to get spurts of unusually extreme weather because of climate change. But we also know that if it rained non-stop all summer, if there was no rain at all, and if it was cold all summer, that would also be climate change. There is no weather we can have that is not going to be attributed to climate change, is there?
Yeah, and this is what tells you that the whole climate change crisis narrative is not a scientific narrative. It's a religious narrative, a cult narrative, if you like. You know, a scientist would say, you know, yeah, if heat is evidence of climate change, then cold is evidence against it. But of course, that is not the way things pan out here. What we're told is that everything is evidence for climate change. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's catastrophizing with a view to getting people to change their behaviour, to consume less, to go out less, and yeah, people should just ignore them.
And just do what, yes, exactly. Well, we had Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General. He's always bleating about this and totally catastrophising everything. You know, the planet's going to die with all these UN IPCC reports. And, I mean, saying stuff that's simply not remotely in the report or even in the summaries. Of course, you know, he flew in to do it, and they're telling us we shouldn't fly so much. Now, a lot of people are taking time off work. A lot of people are having to be off work because their kids are off school. Meanwhile, we've got the Climate Change Committee. This government's officially appointed sort of supposedly independent panel, but appointed by the government, which basically decides what our climate change policies and what is necessary should be. And they're very unhappy that we are refusing to buy enough heat pumps, and we're not moving from our very, very reliable and relatively usually affordable gas central heating to heat pumps. And they're jolly cross with us and the government, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this just shows the good sense of the British public in many ways. The thing about heat pumps is that they are the fuel they run on, i.e. electricity, has been made very expensive because the UK has followed the policies advocated by the Climate Change Committee. They can hardly complain that people don't want to use heat pumps when it's them who've made electricity expensive. Yeah. Electricity is nearly 4 times the price of gas. So you know, even with the most efficient heat pumps, really are very unlikely to be cheaper to run than a gas boiler, and they're certainly not cheap enough to justify the huge extra capital cost of the heat pump over the gas boiler.
And the disruption. So, yeah, they're not going to fit in your gas boiler, are they? I mean, you're going to have to dig up your garden and you know, change an awful lot of things, and there's a whole redecoration cost as well. I mean, most people, that's something you might do every 20 years. People can't afford that.
Yeah, no, I mean, the payback on these things is ridiculous. You will not get a payback on them. And the thing people have to understand is that electricity is getting more expensive all the time.
Yep.
So it's going to get even less cost effective to have a heat pump in future. So absolutely, people should not be buying them. And you know, one can only hope that, you know, if we get a change of government and get, you know, a sane government in place, that they will just do away with all the incentives and try to get electricity back down to a cheaper price.
Good luck with that.
Then might give us an opportunity.
Yeah. Andrew, I fear the heat has got to you. The feet has got you because you actually think that's a possibility under the next government. I'm afraid I'm not entirely sure that is the case. Andrew Montfort, Director of Net Zero Watch, live there from the ARC conference. Thank you for that. And I don't see any chance of that actually happening. Do you, Benedict?
No, I don't see any chance of it happening. But, you know...
They're completely wedded to this madness.
They are, but who knows? The heat does strange things to people. It might, in fact, somehow prompt a bout of sanity in the Labour Party. If their normal sort of state, for instance, is insanity, you know, who knows? Who knows?
I am not hopeful. Talking of sanity, he's here. Ian Collins.
Well, I don't know.
No, forget talking about important stuff about the economy. Can you teach some of these young whippersnappers, the Benedict Spences and the Peter Caldwells of this world, about appropriate attire in the office even though it's hot? Look at him, look how smart he is.
Thank you very much.
Look
Am
how
I the only
dashing he
person,
is.
by the way, that thinks it's a little bit chilly out there today? I don't know, maybe the insanity has hit me.
He is a lizard.
I have got lizard-based properties. It's been said before, but yes, it's. I think dressing is kind of right. I mean, Benedict's always
Well, I mean,
nicely
I'm glad
dressed.
you're all dressed. I mean, thank
Well, I mean, the
heavens-
idea to come undressed.
Thank
would have
heavens
been...
for virtually. Thank heavens for mercy. I've got to ask you about this announcement. Andy Burnham apparently is looking to set up a number 10 in the north. They want to have part of his prime ministerial operation in Manchester.